Hey, it's Jozu, and you're listening to.
Jozucast.
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 Yeah, I mean, thanks for being here, first of all.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I'm not going to to call you crazy or list any of the go crazy on you like how they were
thank
on
God,
Twitter.
no, which one, please.
No. I'm not here to spread that witch hunt. But I do want to talk about it because I did think that it was very interesting. Something that I didn't see anyone talk about.
Yeah. I mean, that's totally fine. I'm not like, I don't have my panties in a twist about it.
Yeah, so at least just kind of explain to me like how did this like start? Because I know you said that because I mean, a lot of people read the twit longer that you've been thinking like these are thoughts you've had since the beginning of this year. So like what was kind of like happening at the beginning of this year when all of this started like happening for you, or, like formulating in
Right.
your
So
head?
a beginning of the year was kind of when I made the arguably bad decision to start using my Twitter.
Okay.
Before, I mean, because I've been streaming since I don't know, like September of last year. But I didn't really start doing anything with my Twitter account until I'd say the beginning of this year. And so it was a little fun at first, and I had I met like a lot of great VTubers and great people. Just interacting both on Twitter and then off of Twitter as well. And so it was all good, right? Like
Yeah.
I like VTubers, all right. I'm a
Yeah.
VTuber, all right. These are
Yeah.
other VTubers. We're chilling. Um, it, so to preface this, I'm a bit more of I guess you I feel like we're just making up terms now for things that are kind of common sense. But I'm what I guess people would call more of a traditionalist with VTubers, right? I've been watching
Traditionalists.
VTubers, so, yeah, like
Hasn't even been around that long. When did the tradition
well,
start?
so it's kind of shocking when you really think about it. It's been 5 years. It's been half a decade. Um, I think most people would agree. I don't know anybody who would really disagree that Kizunai was the one who sort of coined the term VTuber and made it like an actual thing. There were definitely people who were streaming with avatars, even anime avatars, especially some VR chat stuff prior to that. But it wasn't really a thing until Kizunai came along, and so that's kind of where I placed the start point of just VTubers as a concept, as a sort of solidified concept. And I, like many other people, the first video of hers that I watched was the one where she's playing Inside, the one where you get little dude and it's like a side scrolling game, a little story
Oh,
like with no
okay.
talking. Uh, and there's a couple funny clips in there, like when she got startled by a pig jumping out of the mud. That was funny. But then, that was I had to go back and check. That was December of 2016. It has been a hot minute. Um,
Right.
don't mind me. I'm just drinking out of a like gallon of water.
You're good?
Anyways, yeah, it's my thing.
Yeah, that's fine.
I need to stay hydrated.
Oh, for
Anyways,
sure, yeah.
yeah, but like so I've been watching VTubers since then. So it started with Keys and I, but then you got Kagel Luna, who to be fair, I didn't really know about Luna until she did that April Fool's collab with Kizna in like I want to say 2018, maybe 2017. Might have been late 2017.
Okay.
Mirai Akari came along later. I think right around the time when I think it was Super Bunny Man came out or something to that effect, or it got popular. That's when I found out about like the Omega Sisters and Himehina, who are still to this day two of my favorite like VTuber duos. They're just absolutely fantastic. Um, God, who else was there? When Fortnite was getting big, yeah, you like Fortnite?
Oh, that game.
You can say no. You can say no.
No,
Trust me. I would say no.
I didn't download it on my computer, but I was like, you know what? For the meme, because it's when they first introduced it to mobile, I downloaded it on my iPad.
Oh, you played it on mobile.
And so when they first released it, and so you know what? It was pretty good because for my first 3 rounds, I made it up to second. I was like second to last one alive, only because I knew how to hide and to like go from bush to bush. But when it became
Right.
like I'm down with the last person, I didn't know how to. I don't know if
You had
anyone
to
knows
shoot,
how to
right?
aim.
Yeah, I've been in
shoot.
that exact spot. Oh my
Yeah.
god. Because my first game on I picked it up on the Xbox because I was constantly being told, "Oh, you got to play this. You got to play this Fortnite game. Fortnite game." Right?
Yeah.
And so I played it in like the first round because in the past I played a lot of FPS games. I
Okay.
just absolutely murked everybody and won like Victory Royale my first match, and then I just didn't play the game again. It's like whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, like there's another Japanese VTuber, Kana. I don't think she has a surname, but it's kind of with two N's.
Okay.
And like I started watching her. She had like a Fortnite 12 kills no build video, I think. It's like
Okay.
something stupid like that in like
Yeah.
2018. And that was before she even hit like 10K subs. So it was like it's not really anything to be proud of, but for some reason I'm like oddly proud that I was like it's like being a parent, right?
Uh-huh.
um, and probably like sometime in 2019, I think probably started with Matsuri. I started watching Hololive. Never really got too big into Niji Sanji, although I do like Lulu. But anyways, so that's sort of a preface.
Yeah.
And so where I was going with that is my concept of a VTuber is in line with every single one of those VTubers and basically every other, like 99% of all the VTubers who were from 2016 to now, right? Is that they have a model. I used to be, believe it or not, this might come as a bit of a shock, but I used to be even more of a Puritan, and I was not okay with PNG tubers or 3D tubers. Well, not 3D, like Vroid default VTubers,
Okay.
right?
Right.
But I mean, that was me just being a bit of a stick in mug. I don't really like care that much about that anymore. So I'd say you got a model. It's a PNG, a 2D, 3D, whatever. You got some degree of character beyond just like I am a person who streams. Because we have a bajillion of those, right? I mean, it could just be like the smallest scrap of lore. Just say I'm a cat girl from the jungles of I don't know, like Peru, something like that. you know, so have a model, have some kind of character, like even a scrap will do, right? Create some kind of video content. Doesn't even have to be a streams. I mean, people seem to forget. For the longest time, Keys and I didn't even stream. Like all the old VTubers didn't stream. They just made short edited clips
Right.
because they had like like corporate backing, right? So they had
Right.
motion capture studios, and it wasn't like something that was super easy to stream because I'm sure the technology was rather wonky and you'd get a lot of glitches. So they had to have it edited in post.
Uh-huh. At least from what I know, Kizuna I didn't even know she did. I think I do have some memory of her playing a game, but like the big thing that like remember her for is like the dance videos. It was always
Oh
dance, and
yeah, yeah,
those
yeah.
would just go viral and everyone would be like, "Whoa, what's this?"
It's crazy. All the boomers come in like, "Wow, it's so amazing how much computer AI has progressed." Like it's hilarious.
Right. I think at least from
Uh,
her, it's when I realized that, oh, this is like a thing, like virtual
this is a thing. This is
characters.
this is the thing. This is the new thing, right?
Right. And
It's
then
the new hotness.
right. And then I think for me it wasn't until I discovered Hololive clips like back in 2019 that I was like, "Oh, this is something anyone can do." Like
Mm-hmm.
this is you don't need like a whole like what's this anime girl playing Minecraft? Like what I could do that.
Yeah.
Like
Like
I think
she's
that
playing Cat Mario. I can do that.
right. So I think yeah, at least with how crazy big Hololive got, I think that's when a lot of people realize that oh, this is something like I could do as well. But I see from what you're saying, like you've been in it like way before Hololive became even huge.
Yeah, Hololive was a glimmer in Yagu's eye before he realized like, oh shit, I can pay people. I can't be an anime girl, but I can pay people to be anime girls for me.
Right.
He's
That's what
he's
he
he's a, he's a genius. He is a modern day Mozart.
yeah, he did that with the first one, Sora,
Yeah, yeah.
and then it just grew from there, which is crazy to what
Yeah.
it is right now.
I got a confession to make though.
Okay.
I never really found Sora that interesting. I'm gonna be honest. I feel really bad because
Uh-huh.
she is kind of like the OG Hololive, but I don't think that she's really as good as the other kind of early gen talents.
Okay.
But anyways, so have a model, have some scrap of character, make video content, and then
Okay.
rule four, which is it's not about what they did, but rather what they didn't do is to not post selfies or stream with an actual face cam, and this is where people kind of get mad at me. And it becomes a bit of a complex conversation because a lot of this ends up just being sort of subjective, arbitrary lines in the sand that you're drawing, right? But I think that the reason that I think this is because before I was ever a VTuber, I was a VTuber content consumer, and
Okay.
or just well, and I like I just watch stuff all the time, right, on YouTube. I consume plenty of video content, right? And
Yeah.
as somebody who is an avid consumer of content, I like being able to find the content that I want to watch. So if I want to watch, say, a cooking video, right? So you go to YouTube and you type in cooking videos. What do you expect to show up in the search results?
Cooking, anything, whatever YouTube algorithm thinks I want, whatever
Right,
combination
right.
VTuber cooking, who knows at this point. But yeah, cooking,
Yeah.
really.
So generally speaking, it's content that contains cooking, right?
Okay, yeah.
Now, take a different type of content, for example. Are you familiar with mukbang?
Yes.
It's where they just eat a disgusting amount of food, and usually just talk about drama. So imagine, picture this. All right, all of a sudden, a bunch of mukbang tubers decide, oh shit, this stuff doesn't bring in enough views, but people really like cooking videos. Well, I have food in my videos. I'll just tag my videos as mukbang and cooking. And then all of a sudden, when people search for cooking videos, now they're just saying mukbang videos. You can kind of see where I'm starting to get with like frustration about that, right? It's a misuse of tags essentially. So what I think, and sort of to build off on this, would you say that the term VTuber is synonymous with the term streamer or YouTuber? Do you think that it's interchangeable?
Not so much interchangeable, but they if you still look at what they do, they kind of do the same things.
Right. So it's sort of like, all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are square, right? So there's a nuance to it. There's something about a VTuber that differentiates it from being just a streamer or just a content creator. It's a specific kind of content creator, right? Or well, a specific kind of content by not association, but you know what I mean. So I believe it or not, and this is going to sound really like weird of me to have done, and I guess it is kind of. I spent a lot of time like thinking, man, how do you really? Because I like to define things, right? I like to kind of figure out why I think the certain ways about certain things, or what certain things kind of mean, like what kind of connotations words and terms have. And so I thought, like, what is it? What is it that all of these quote unquote VTubers are doing that other streamers are not? Like, is it the fact that they have an avatar? Well, I mean, no. I mean, you look at any like Odd One Out or anybody who isn't using like a face cam making content where they have some kind of avatar. There's been a bajillion of those, and they're just content creators, right? So it's not the fact just having an avatar is not sufficient to differentiate. Like that's not really what the essence of the difference between a VTuber and a standard content creator is. And so what I eventually came to is that there's a separation of there's a separation between your real life sort of reality thing and this character that you've created. And so some people might say, oh well, plenty of content creators are playing a character. Like they don't act like I'm trying to think who's big. Markiplier. I don't know, one of the big guys, right?
They just exaggerate what they're already feeling.
Exactly. So you could
Right.
say that they are playing a character, but again, so that's not quite it. Like there has to be. I think that there has to be that separation, and that's what makes the concept stand on its own 2 feet. It kind of stand apart and be interesting. I mean, we've got millions and millions and millions of people who are just real life normal dude make the content. You look at them, they're just normal dude, right? But then
Okay.
you've got like, damn, this is like a cool. This is like it's like I'm watching an anime character, right? It's this character, and there's a crucial separation that makes it interesting. You see a little bit of that with kind of early comments on Kids in the Eye videos where they thought some people thought she was like an actual AI. I was like, it's cool. It's a novel concept. It takes kind of what we're relatively familiar with, people who have avatars and make content and have a bit of a character, and sort of takes it to that next level. And so my thoughts on my feelings on this matter are that if you take away that separation, all of a sudden you're kind of missing the plot. Like you're kind of you've lost that, a part of that what makes that concept unique and interesting. Now again, all this is relatively subjective, but yeah, hopefully that this 20-minute ramble has answered that first question.
Well, then at least how do you differentiate then? Because if you're saying that the character, the model, and the story or the playing of a character are inseparable, then how do you differentiate that idea of a VTuber from just from like a animated character like a Mickey Mouse or like something like that? Where do you draw the line there?
Right. So at that point, that's a fantastic point, and I was really hoping you would jump on that. There are content creators who have done basically everything that I've said prior to VTubers existing, but they weren't VTubers. And so what I eventually came to is, well, they fit all the requirements, but they didn't choose to call themselves VTubers, partially because for a lot of them the concept didn't exist yet. So that sort of fifth hidden sort of implied quote unquote rule is that you call yourself a VTuber. If you fit the criteria for a VTuber and you want to be, consider yourself a VTuber and market your content as VTuber content, just say it's VTuber content. You've got everything, you got all the quote unquote requirements, So ultimately, it comes down to choice. There's a bit of choice. You act like a VTuber. You create VTuber content, and you decide, hey, I'm a VTuber. Yeah, so that's sort of where I ended up on that.
Mm-hmm. Then yeah, I mean it's interesting because like if I see like all of I mean at least all the early people who got it right before VTuber was a name. Well, obviously the people who like the thing had to exist before enough people had to do it before the VTuber name could even be like a thing, right? So like at least where I'm trying to get with that is like
Where
at
where
least
where was it enough? Is that what you're saying?
where was it enough that like okay now we can call this group of people doing this same weird thing like VTubers?
Honestly, it's a simple answer. It only took one.
Okay, was
To
that
think about it, and basically like the first Kizna video, it's hi domo, bachelor YouTuber, YouTuber Kizna this. Like it's VTuber is literally virtual YouTuber. So quick aside, you may have noticed that I didn't say as a rule that VTubers have to be YouTubers. Um, I decided to be a little bit lenient on that, even though it is technically, if I wanted to put my foot down about anything, that would be the easiest thing because it's literally the name. VTuber is a shortening of virtual YouTuber.
right?
That said, I think that you can stream on Twitch and not lose the essence of it. It's a different platform, but the essence and concept is still the same. But yeah, so I think that basically Kizna I again is sort of decided to call herself that, and it caught on. And so after that point, they all started calling themselves virtual YouTubers and eventually VTubers.
So then, does the definition of a VTuber stop at where Kizuna I started it, or like how far? Because like this is still new, so like it's expanding. Like we got Kizuna I, and now we got PNG tubers, and now like it's stretched so far. And like where do you stop that definition of VTuber and start calling it something else?
Right, right. So like how far can you push this envelope? I would say that again, it ultimately ends up being a bit arbitrary and a bit subjective. My line, is sort of it stops once you lose sight of what makes the concept the concept. Um, based on everything that VTubers have been for more or less the majority of VTubers for more or less the majority of the past 5 years. That's what I have sort of come to as the definition of what it means to be a VTuber, just based on what they've done and what they haven't done. So from that, I've sort of gone and developed that concept, and decided for myself. I think it makes sense, but it is ultimately me deciding for myself. Uh, that it's that character with the separation from reality that is the core of what makes this interesting, and the everything else, having the model, having the degree of character, making video content, those are all just the means to create this concept with this concept. So that's sort of why I get kind of irritated about people who will say, "Hey, I'm a VTuber," but then they're just like Vanessa from Grad posting like a selfie every other day on Twitter, like a real life selfie. It's it feels to me that it's not in the spirit of what I have come to know VTubers as, or what VTuber content has been. It's so much of a departure from the concept. I think that's where it kind of gets me.
Hmm. Then yeah, I can kind of see that. But then is it not, so then are people who post like pictures of themselves not a VTuber in the sense that you're talking about it because it's not like interesting to you? Because the only types of VTubers that are interesting to you are ones that actually have a character and like a story and like stick to that.
Right. I would say that, how do I put this? I wouldn't say that they're just I wouldn't say like posting a picture makes you automatically not a VTuber. What I'm saying is that it's what you're doing is you're creating you're putting content out there. We'll call it content. It's a selfie, right? You're putting content out there that is not VTuber content. Uh, and it it's not VTuber content in a way that directly conflicts with what I believe to be the VTuber concept. So if you want to be a VTuber, then I think inherent in that you kind of act like a VTuber. So it doesn't make you not a VTuber. It just means that you're doing things that you kind of shoot yourself in the foot a little bit. I think that there's not really a I'm trying to think of a way to say this that it's gonna sound mean, even though I
Just
don't
go,
mean for it
yeah,
to be
just
mean.
go ahead.
I'll just go ahead. So basically, this is the part where I usually just make like a 2D superiority joke, but like you, you are you, you as if you're just a normal dude, normal guy, normal gal, just average person, and you just take a picture. You are just, in my opinion, in the context of all this, you are less interesting than your VTuber character. And so by revealing your IRL self, it just in like with a selfie, you kind of, I feel that you rob yourself of that intrigue, that interest, that mystery behind your character, and you essentially sell the intrigue of your character for like 100 likes. It just it feels very like not like bad, like morally bad. It doesn't feel good like to kind of see people do that, because the idea of, I mean, everybody knows that VTubers are real people. Let's be honest. Oh shit!
Right.
I leaked it. I've blown the lid off of this whole thing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, no,
but
that's true though.
th- there's always been there's always been that intrigue, right? So everybody knows that like a variety of big Hall Live members have alternate accounts that they had before they were VTubers. I won't obviously link any of them or say which ones they are, but everybody knows that Coco had one, has one. I am personally subscribed to YouTube subscribed, not paying money subscribed to Matsuri's alternate channel, Noel's alternate channel, like, and I find that their content is enjoyable on those alternate channels, but it's they're because they have gone through the effort to maintain that separation. I can enjoy them as separate content creators, even though I'm not stupid. I know that they're the same person. Does that like? And so everybody knows it, but there's always been that intrigue and that interest because you didn't know. You know, there's of course there's again going back to Kids and I. There's the boomers who are like, oh wow, is this really an AI? Yeah, this is crazy. But like other people who, especially people who are very used to anime stuff, they're like, man, I wonder who the voice actress is. Like, I wonder who's behind this. What company is backing this? I wonder what the tech room looks like. Like, there's that intrigue, and it goes back to that the classic concept of content and storytelling. You know, don't tell the audience too much. If you explain absolutely everything, there's no mystery left. There's nothing left up to the audience's imagination, and you lose a bit of that intrigue. And I think that it feels a bit weird to say this as if I'm just giving advice, but I guess this is advice. If you if you if you want to be successful, I'm not saying this will prevent you from being successful, but you're not really doing yourself any favors by robbing yourself of that intrigue. It just doesn't make sense to me as a concept.
Okay, well, at least I could say like for like the Hololive situation, it just seemed like a smarter business decision. It seemed, or at least what it felt like, knowing like the culture of entertainment in Japan, that it
Mhm.
seemed more of like a safety decision rather
Yep,
than
yep.
like an intrigue decision, right? Like we want to have like characters or story, like because of how crazy the super fans are over there, where they'll
Mhm, mhm. Oh my
track you
goodness. The
down.
only things worse than K-pop stans are Japanese idol fans.
Right. And so,
Oh my god.
uh-huh.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Well, it doesn't it then seem like because that same level of like crazy super fans doesn't is not like normal for content, or at least VTubers here in the English speaking scene. Not to say that it doesn't happen, because I know for sure it does
Yeah,
happen,
I was
but
gonna
like
say, oh, it definitely happens, just
it's not
it's not as,
as
visible.
common, where it's like, oh, we need to make sure that like none of our private lives like leak out. It seems now
Mhm.
that because the community is so small, and some people are in it for different reasons than to other than to like tell a story, or be a character. Some people are just here to make friends, and then they post pictures of themselves. That seems
Right,
like a
right, right.
thing as well. Like, I can see where some people like will have all the story and then the character. There are some VTubers who actually have a character now because of how much they've grown, but back when they first started, they were posting pictures of themselves. They were face cam, and then they transitioned into VTubers.
Mhm.
So like, are those guys from the onset like excluded from that because they face cam first, and now their opportunity to be a VTuber is like non-existent now to you? Or how do you go about that? Because like,
Yeah,
for some people, for some content creators, we know what they look like beforehand, if they try to hide how they look like now with their model.
yeah. Two very good points, and I was actually hoping you would make both of those. So, uh, well, I'll start with the crazy idol fan, thing.
Yeah.
So, yes, the it is without a doubt one of the main reason, um, why from the beginning, Keys 9, especially with Hololive, they do not make their members, their talents identities public, is
Mm-hmm.
because their fans are actually just fucking nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Japanese idol fans, like I said, K-pop stans and idol fans they're actually crazy, and
Mm-hmm.
they kind of scare me. And so I don't
Mm-hmm.
blame I don't blame these people for being sad. So you could make an argument that, oh well, the reason that it's been like this from the start is just
Mm-hmm.
because of that. It's a
Mm-hmm.
cultural context. But I would say that doesn't actually invalidate it. I, I
Mm-hmm.
I view what the concept ended up being as sort of a happy byproduct of those contextual decisions. So by it's I'm not I'm under no delusions that from the start they planned to just have it be like unique characters solely for the purpose of like that concept. I'm
Right.
aware that there are safety and business and personal reasons for doing so, but it ultimately ends up arriving at the same concept. And so to me, it doesn't really matter the why of how it got there. It's this fantastic concept that has come about for a variety of reasons, right? Um, as for your second point about content creators who well, I'll assume are you, for example, like Pokimane, for example, right?
Okay.
Is that sort of what you're thinking of? Like people who are already content creators.
Well, yeah, yeah. Let's stick with the safe one, right? Let's not talk about some people who are actually, because then people will go search. So, but
Right,
yeah,
right,
let's
right.
go for Pokemon as an example, right? Someone who's already
Yeah,
like a
yeah, let's go for
well-established.
Pokemon. No, I'm kidding.
Well, let's not. Yeah, let's pick our words carefully, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We can talk about this because it was kind of a big deal in the VTuber
Right.
sphere.
So how do you reconcile that under
I would
under?
say that, like I said, people kind of called me gatekeepy. I'm not here to break legs. I'm not here to take a hammer to your knees and say like you can't be a VTuber because you did this or because you've done this. You're no longer a VTuber. Bang bang, say goodbye to your kneecaps. Right. What I will say is that I gotta stop because I almost said that they're inferior VTubers, but that would be like really mean and not exactly what I'm trying to say here. But
Hmm. Well,
they
then what makes them then, like, if they were to be less of, because what I'm thinking here, right? Like, if the whole game is like proximity to like these people, right? Wouldn't showing their actual like selves make you feel more relatable, more interesting? Because I know I could see the actual person, you know, and not just have to suspend my disbelief and just believe in this like character. Doesn't that make them seem more like relatable in a way?
It does, but relatability. This is a bit more general. Relatability is one of
Okay.
the what you would consider the false idols of content of storytelling, right? Um, people don't. eh, People will point out, oh, this character is relatable as as a good thing, right? As a good quality. But what you'll find is that the best characters don't exactly have to be relatable. They have to be compelling. They have to be interesting. Relatability, you'll see a lot in just screenwriting and whatnot is very often used as a crutch because they can't write good characters. So they'll make them relatable, and you're like, oh, like they're just like me. And yes, you could make an argument that that's something that people like. I would argue that it's an inferior kind of character. It is very much a character crutch. Um, what I think is that you trade what you gain in relatability, you pay for in interest. You become less interesting because regular people, normal, boring, everyday people are, at least in my opinion, and I would imagine the opinion of many people who are kind of in the VTuber, and there's a lot of crossover with the anime community as well. It, you're less interesting than an anime character. Let's be honest. And
Okay.
so you become more relatable. I won't deny that, and I won't deny that there are people who will enjoy that relatability, particularly if they're going for a parasocial relationship. It's that's neither here nor there. But I think that in my opinion, at least, and this is ultimately just my opinion, you are less interesting as a normal person, as a real life person, than you are as an anime character.
Oh, I think I'm starting to start to see,
So you're
because
finally understanding. Ah, he's just a weeb.
I
He's just one of
well
those.
I'm not gonna say that. No, 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 I'm not saying that like. 'Cause I'm just seeing now where your angle, and
Mm,
because I mean I read what you said and I
it was very poorly. It
disagree.
was terrible.
Well, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna
It
say
doesn't read. It
whether
doesn't read well.
I'm not gonna say, yeah, the word choice was very flashy, but it did get me thinking, right? Like, okay, it was very like thought provoking, like everything I told you. I thought it was very interesting. Although some people in the comments would say otherwise, but
Well, I mean, they
anyways,
had fun with it. I don't think
true.
they can deny that they had fun with it. It's-
But what at least what I'm seeing is that at least how you are seeing VTubers, it's coming more from more of a theater performance. Like it's more theatrical, where there's like story elements in play. There's a character, and you don't really want to see the actor, because you're not here to see the actor. You're here to see the performance of the actor in a way. But then I
right,
see, and
right.
then I see, well, like the other VTubers, especially the ones who maybe didn't have such good things to say, and I wanted to see, well, okay, what are they seeing it differently? And I think the way that they're seeing it is not so much in a theatrical way, but in a way that like they see another streamer who they're just streaming a game because they like it, and instead of there's the story isn't important. It's just the fact that they don't want to show a webcam, and they think a model would be cool without having to carry all of the baggage of having a story or playing a character, right? Because I know that at least in the first VTubers that came out, they were playing a character, and it seemed like more of a drama, or more like a performance than like some EN VTubers, where they relate more to like another content creator rather than an anime character, right? Because they see it as more of a streaming. It's just a webcam alternative. Is that am I sort of seeing that? What are you thinking about that?
You're sort of. I wouldn't go so far as to call it like I'm here because it's theatrical for this. Or like I said, I don't really expect anybody to have much more than, at least, again, just a bare minimum of something. Like just say that you're from planet Zorgonoff or something like that. Like like it's not so much about it being theatrical as it is about being content that I think is interesting. Um, like I've said a couple times, there are if you want to just be a streamer, right? Nothing wrong with that, but I will point out that there are millions and millions of streamers, and frankly, if all you're doing is swapping your face cam for a model, then you're not really, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're not really taking it. You're jumping into this, we'll call it a trend. You're jumping into this trend without really fully understanding it, and more importantly, without really taking advantage of it. You're kind of gimping yourself from the get go, because you can do so much more. You can be so much more interesting, uh, and all it takes is you just maintain that separation between yourself and your real life self, right?
Right. And okay, I can yeah, I can see it at least from that like perspective. But then what about let's take it from the viewer's perspective, right? What if someone who doesn't
Hmm.
know much about VTubers and they see this like weird guy playing, Minecraft and he's talking about a story like what, I just want to see him play the game. Like I think of him as a normal person. I think of this, this animated character as a normal person rather than them like and they are weirded out by the story, right?
Right. Well then I'd say, why aren't they just watching a normal streamer?
Right. Well, maybe they just like the idea of watching this like animated character that, is just like it's just, like the webcam alternative. It's just more interesting to for them, that there is no, the story, it's just them with a webcam.
Right, and you can certainly be a content creator that does that, but I would say, like,
But
why
can you
why
be a
call yourself a VTuber
VTuber?
then?
And
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that by calling yourself a VTuber, I would hope that as somebody who really does love this concept, again, going on 5 years here, like, I love this stuff. It's great. It's fun. It's interesting. It's relatively fresh. And as any person who has a hobby or an interest that they really enjoy, I want people to really kind of get to know it and enjoy it to the level that I do. I'm not saying they have to. I'm not saying they need to, religiously, like put in their calendar for every time that Corona streams, right? But it kind of makes me a little sad when I see the people, they see a trend where it's like, oh wow, all of a sudden every VTubers are popular. What's this? They do like a quick glance. Oh, it's just people streaming with an avatar. And at that point, you're like, "Ugh," like, is that really all it is to you? Like, you know, I I feel like you're setting yourself up to not really have as much fun as you could, at least in my opinion.
But what if they could
So,
have as much fun with it and have a community around it, just having that webcam alternative? What if there is
right.
a happy community, a happy VTuber, and it all there is no story, there is just the webcam. Can that still be a VTuber?
So I
If
would I would posit that it's not something I would encourage, and the reason being is that we're forgetting that there are two sides to this, right? There are the people who are, again, generally speaking, newer to the scene, right? Newer to the concept, to the sort of VTuber sphere, and you're they're here and they're fine with just a normal dude, but they're using the model, right? But you've got to remember, there are millions and millions and millions of people who are already enjoying VTuber content that is a certain kind of way. And the reason that at the very least I felt the need to just say something about it is because it's sort of like, you ever been big into cosplay
me
or anything? You,
personally,
you ever
no,
done like cosplay or anything? No, you ever
no,
like
I
seen
haven't.
cosplay shoots or pictures or anything?
I've seen plenty of it.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I would argue that there is a lot of similarities between what's happening now, with the VTuber sphere and what has happened with the cosplay sphere. And again, this ends up being another subjective thing, and people will be like, "Oh, well, you're just gatekeeping." So there was a point. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember the name, and it's probably for the best because I don't want to call anybody out. But I was talking with another VTuber, somewhat recently, like shortly after the whole Twitter drama thing, and they kind of agree with me, and they're like, "Yeah, yeah, it reminds me of such and such person who kind of kickstarted this trend among cosplay, where it went from being people who would put effort into recreating their favorite character, dressing up as their favorite character, creating crafting these cool costumes, even if it was just a simple stuff. Like it was kind of about that, right? Again, about the character, and then it just turned into like now you have this girl she's hot, right? She's well endowed, and so she puts on a Pikachu ear headband and does like clown red paint on her cheeks and says, "I'm cosplaying Pikachu," and then does an entire shot, like an entire cosplay photo shoot where it's basically just softcore porn. And so you could say, "Oh, well, that's fine, right?" Like there are people who will enjoy that, right? But the thing is, people who are joining a hobby, uh, you have what is called, I'm sure this is an actual term, but like cultural assimilation, right? If you've got 5 people who are playing a game a certain way, or doing some kind of hobby a certain way, and one new person joins, generally they'll fit themselves in and they'll adapt to the existing group, right? And they assimilate into it, and life goes on. What happens then? What happens then if you bring in like 3 people at once, and they decide that, oh well, we don't quite like it this way, we're going to do it slightly differently. Again, they can, that's fine, but then the problem begins when all of a sudden more and more new people join, and they don't see the original group, they see the new group who are doing things differently. And so you get more people who are doing it that way, and what ends up happening is you end up alienating fans and enjoyers of the hobby who are kind of already there enjoying it for what it was. And ultimately you either end up with a big schism, or the whole thing collapses, and it just becomes a bit of a mess. So I that's why I feel like I should say, oh, I would encourage this or discourage this, because as somebody who's kind of it feels really cringe to call myself knowledgeable about VTubers. Like somebody who's been here, right? I'm part of the group. Myself and others, we've been here for years. It's been a certain way for a certain point, and I can half subjectively, half objectively give an explanation for why I think it's good this way. And so it's a bit off putting to sort of have that be messed with. I'm In case you're wondering, I'm really not much more articulate when I'm speaking than I am when I'm writing.
No, you're saying a lot of interesting stuff. It's an interesting perspective. Just I've only been on in the VTuber scene for almost a year, but I've known about them for almost 2. And
Mhm.
so a lot of it was like very new, and so at least for me, I'm very comfortable with the fact that like it's changing so much, and then all of a sudden it wasn't until recently that, because people with like animated the PNG tubers, uh
Mhm.
right, I mean there were people who used a little character like that wasn't animated before PNG Tuber was even like a thing. So I'm quite comfortable with it, assimilating them into also like a VTuber. But it seems like when you like got into it, your your definition of a VTuber was just sort of invested with who you got in with at the time, right? So the definition
Absolutely, absolutely.
the definition of it is fits with what Kizuno Ai was, or like other VTubers that you got into at your time. And it seems like mine is, well, the more later stage ones, especially the English speaking VTubers, where the definition is changing all the time.
Right. I mean, what it is it's a shift in the Overton window. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And so it based on it, I still think that if you were to come into VTubing, like to sort of pick up the hobby, the interest, right? And if you spent time and kind of got to know VTubing as like outside of just this microcosm of the past year, you'd have a different you develop a different concept of what a VTuber is than if you just hyper focus to like this year. Um, and so again, it's I'm well aware that definitions change and
What do you think about
concepts
that?
shift.
Yeah, what do you think about that? And that now PNG
Uh,
tubers are a thing, or the Vroid models?
I would say that ultimately, I'll go back to what I said before. I'm fine with it as long as it doesn't lose that magic, as long as it doesn't lose what I think makes it special and interesting. That's why
And what
again,
is
that's
that?
why I'm
What
fine
is
with
that
PNG
special?
tubers.
The story, or what was that
It's
thing that
that
you?
separation. It's you're an interesting character. You're an interesting virtual character. Let's not forget VTuber is virtual YouTuber. You're a virtual character, which just by definition implies a separation from boring real life person, right? So I think that as long as you maintain that, you haven't shifted too far away.
I don't know if virtual like V2. I mean, if we extrapolate the word virtual YouTuber,
Well, no, it
I
was
don't.
originally virtual YouTuber and it was shortened to VTuber.
Right. I don't know where character fits because if you look at a YouTuber, it's just someone who makes content, and then virtual is just, well, there's no camera. It's a virtual camera, right? So I don't know where
Well, I mean,
does the
all digital
character.
content is virtual. It's kind of
Right, but the person
that ends up
representing
being a
it
semantics
is
debate.
a virtual one, right? So the story,
Right, right.
or no, the medium you use, the avatar you use is virtual, but in a sense, does that mean that the story behind that avatar also has to be virtual, right? Because like if it's just because really it's just another technology, right? And we're all like actual people, so it's just do we have to create like another version of ourselves just to be able to like use this other technology? That's really what it is.
Well, it's not about you need to create a different version of yourself to use the technology. It's you can use the technology. It's just not necessarily the same as being a VTuber. So I would agree. The word virtual, you can interpret that given the context. You can interpret that in different ways, and the way that I chose to interpret it was in line with how it was actually being used.
Okay.
So because all of these big VTubers from the beginning until now, even they all did it a certain way. It gave the virtual part of it a certain meaning, um, if
Okay.
that makes sense.
Then let's go with this. Then do you consider yourself a VTuber who sticks with like the character and like a story?
This is a rather meta question, but generally speaking, yes. Although to be fair, I'm an alien here, blending in with human society. So the fact that I often act very human just means that it's working. So
Oh, okay. Okay. Then
it's very easy to do this. It's very
okay.
easy. You don't have to make it that hard for yourself.
So, okay. So then where do you draw the line with cuz like I take a scroll through your Twitter and like I see people talking about a lot of stuff, but you do post IRL stuff, like maybe not of your
Right, right.
face,
Yep.
but you
Good point.
post
Good
like of
point.
stuff going on around you. And to me,
Right.
I'm thinking, well, that has less to do with your character than someone posting a picture of themselves, the person controlling this virtual avatar.
Uh-huh. Well, if you make a joke about the twofold response to this. You make a joke about tacos. What does that have to do? Tacos are a real life thing. Why are you a VTuber talking about taco? We can't make taco jokes. You can't talk about anything. Like, see, so what I ultimately came to with that is again, my definition is very much based on the big boys. It's based on what the largest portion of VTubing is and has been. And so let's be honest, Hololive is top dog right now, right? Kizna I, it was actually kind of funny. Up until I think, I want to say like this past summer, Kizna I was still the most subscribed VTuber, despite the fact that the channel has been in decline for years. It's still the most subscribed, and it was only very very recently that she was surpassed by Gura, right? And so what as sort of a catch-all for allowing people to branch out is I say, look, if Hololive does it, it's kosher. So the reason that I'm okay with IRL, like you want to take a picture of like a plant or something, all right, you can do that because Hololive members have done stuff. So for example, Hachima does. God, it's so unbelievably ingrained in my mind that I said Hachima instead of Hato. Anyways, has done cooking streams, right? So I actually think that if you're a VTuber, you can do a hands only kind of cooking stream or a gunpla stream. I've done a couple of those myself because Hololive has done it and it is now okay. I think that the actions of Hololive are this again, this is gonna sound kind of mean. The actions of Hololive are a much more valid reason to shift the Overton window than the opinion of like a 1K Twitter follower Vtuber. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they, their opinion matters because they matter. They are the big dogs. They are VTubing right now, more or less.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's a very interesting point, and there's a lot of stuff to just take out from there. But the
yeah,
first
there's a
thing,
lot to what's the phrase? A lot to unpack there.
it's a lot to unpack there. Yeah, yeah. So I want to stick on that point for a second with a lot of different stuff, right? So for Hachima, I mean, I call her that too, so that's just ingrained in my brain as well. Does that mean that the VTubers who did those IRL hand streams beforehand, weren't VTubers or in your eyes, but now that Hachima's done it, now they are VTubers in your eyes?
To be fair, I'll preface it and say that I will go back and solidify my stance on this, in that while I think it is okay, I still think it's less interesting content. It's I I'm not saying like, oh no, I can't believe Hachima showed her hands with gloves. My life is over. She's not an anime wife. Like, it's not that. I personally don't really watch her cooking videos, not because they upset me, but just because I'm not like, that's not what I'm here for, right?
Right.
I've done a couple things with my hands myself, or like, I'll post a picture on Twitter because I thought that I could make a funny joke of it, and it wasn't really me. It wasn't like, I feel like you're still able to maintain that separation, that perception of this virtual character interacting with their surroundings. I think that still makes sense. Um,
But it's
we
the
don't
person
we don't
interacting, not the character.
well, if you wanna say it like that, it is. But if you don't say it like that, then you can just, it just is sort of implied that it's you, the character, interacting. I mean,
Oh,
we
but
don't. Like, I'm not gonna
if they put
say
on the black gloves, then it's the character doing the
like,
doing it.
because otherwise it becomes incredibly restrictive, and in a way that not even I would support, right? Because we're not all backed by Kizuna Ai's mega corporation, where we all have a virtual environment that we can be in 24/7, and you know what I mean?
Right. So I get where you're saying that it's not interesting, but does that mean that at least definition wise of a VTuber, that she's not one because she does that?
I would say no. I would say that that
But like you said, she's
to,
the top dog.
well, to clarify what I to restate what I said
Uh huh.
before,
Uh huh.
I don't think that people posting selfies makes them not a VTuber. I just think it makes them I don't want to say less of a VTuber, but just not as good of a VTuber, right?
Or at least interesting to you.
Right, right. Again, this is all in the context of my opinions and views on
Right.
this
Right. Right.
concept.
Right. Yeah, I
So
think the
hopefully that
wording.
hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
The wording is rather specific. It's a
So
bit precise.
it's just I get it. I'm also a weeb with strong opinions, but I guess to you it's not good or interesting, but definition wise, they still fall under that umbrella.
Right, but I would encourage them, if what they want to do is a lot of that, and actually I'll follow this up with the actual answer to your original question. If what they want to do is that, then why call yourself a VTuber? Like, like, you clearly want to do it a certain way that doesn't quite jive with what VTubers are, like, in terms of what has been done, right? So like, uh, it 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 looks to me, from my viewpoint, as somebody who has watched VTubing as a concept and as a community grow, especially with the explosion once it kind of really jumped over to the Western market, in like, you know late 2019, early 2020, more so early 2020. Um, it is, or not really, maybe like mid 2020. When did V Shoujo start? It was like mid 2020, right? Something like that.
That was I think
Basically,
in 2020. 2020. I don't
yeah.
know. Time flies.
Yeah, it's
Recently, it
sometimes I
happened
forget the
recently
last 2
though.
years happened. Yeah, it's fairly recent. There was a big explosion of interest, which is good, and it's also, bad. I mean, niche
Is
hobbies
it?
lose a little something when they go mainstream, right? Generally speaking.
But it's good,
Um,
more eyes, more variety.
True, true. But then, we'll go to the Pokimane sort of situation. That's kind of where my eyes were open, and I was like, "Oh, I see kind of what's happening here."
She's
So
a
you see
top dog though.
Pokimane.
She's a top
Well,
dog
she's
using
a top dog in the
the.
IRL streamer, you know, parasocial relationship kind of deal, right? And so what I saw is when she posted that model and was like, "Hey, I'm doing it," like there were a lot of I'm gonna have to be a little harsh with here because there's not really a nice way to say this. There's a lot of clout chasing. People will say, "Oh, well, you can interact with big people and it's not clout chasing," but let's be honest, there was a lot of clout chasing, and there was also a lot of hopping on the bandwagon. So the concept, exploded and went a bit mainstream,
You think
and
she
so
did
you have a
that?
lot
You
of
think
people.
she? Wait, you thought? Let's clarify that. You think she
I,
was
I
clout
wouldn't say no. I
chasing,
wouldn't say it was specifically her. I'm just saying
or
that
people
what you
who saw
see.
her do that were clout
No, what
chasing?
what you see in the replies to that is an example of what I'm getting at.
Okay.
It's a lot of people who they look at VTubing, and rather than seeing it from the get go as something interesting like a hobby, like, they see it as a vehicle for clout and for money. I'm not saying this is gonna sound like I'm accusing every so many EN VTubers of just being I think I said clout and simp bucks or whatever, but that actually that genuinely is a thing. There are a number of people who are doing this solely for that. And as somebody who likes the hobby for what it is, I don't. You never really like to see your hobby kind of parasitized and exploited for like money. You know what I mean? It's like watching a franchise get taken over by EA. It makes you a little irritable. And so, beginning of the year, you start to see these trends.
Okay.
They call them trends. Um, the trend of the week, right? Where it's like trend of the week, VTuber thighs. Everybody posting your thighs, right? Everybody got to post their thighs, real life thighs, because they want the attention, and they're kind of just doing these trends. And
Or isn't that part of just what the community does? That it was a community
sort of,
thing.
but in that rush, I feel like it gets back to they're kind of losing sight of the concept, in my opinion, right? And if it just happened like once or twice, again, I'm not saying that like you can't be featured to post a selfie, right? But if you're just the thing is, it kept happening, and that's kind of what I would start off with in the twit longer is that this is something that's been a growing irritation for me over the entire year. Every time I go on my Twitter, I'll open it up, and I follow almost exclusively VTubers and like artists and stuff like that, right? And I'll see, oh, VTuber content, selfie, 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 selfie. VTuber content, selfie. Like it gets back to like what I said before, where you look for the cooking videos, and all of a sudden, all you're finding is mukbang. It's That's kind of where my irritation came from. It's the actual effect on my experience as a consumer because people are choosing to go about to treat the hobby this way. And hopefully that
Right.
makes sense.
Right. And I mean, you got people like that with every like sort of niche or hobby,
True,
but
true. So the question is whether or not it should be encouraged.
well, encourage. I mean, everyone gets into VTubing for for different reasons, right? Like some people, and I think at least for the people who want like the clout, I think that's a far minority of them because once they realize that, oh, it's such a niche that like it's almost hard to make money
Oh
off of
yeah, yeah.
it,
The
like
bubble popped really hard for them.
they just kind of like leave and stop. But I think there are some kind of people who maybe do both, IRL stuff, but and VTuber stuff, but
Hmm.
who also like are part of the community and maybe aren't doing it for money or whatever. They're just doing it because they enjoy it. And I guess putting themselves together, on the same timeline with their virtual avatar is something. It may, at least from what I'm seeing, like in how some other VTubers, it's not so much something separate from them, but just a virtual representation of them. So like if my virtual character, like some people who make their virtual avatars look exactly like them, right?
Hmm.
It's not a character. It's me. It's
Yeah,
actually me. So if I post a picture of
that's just what
me,
I would call bad character design. That's like, again, you could do so much more. You could be so much more interesting. Character design, just as a study or just as a as a field, is unbelievably fascinating. All the things that you can do, things shape and color language, just at the very basic level. Things you can do with your character, ways that you can take concepts and visualize them. It's incredibly interesting. So why would you just be Vroid default boy model, default hair, default face, right? It's
Well, it's also hella expensive to the barrier of entry is actually pretty high. If
it's well, it's not if you just want to do PNG.
wait,
You could draw
PNG is okay, but the Vroid is not because of
oh
its
no,
like
Vroid is fine, but don't expect people to not, even if they don't say it out loud. I mean, if you are literally default model, and then you just changed like your eye color or something. Let's be honest, people are gonna look at that, and they may not say it, but they look at that and they just think like lazy, like like even if it's not necessarily the true, it's
I mean, Vroid. Are you saying that anything that comes out of Vroid? Because I mean, I've seen some pretty good models that
no,
came
no,
out
no,
of
no. I've seen
Vroid.
fantastic Vroid
Are you
models.
just saying that some people don't put in enough work to make it look interesting?
Some it's again, it's like the Pokemon thing. I mean, Pokemon's model, not only was it hers, but it was crap. I mean, the quality was crap. It looked very rushed. I know that they both her and the artist who did it tried to claim otherwise, but I didn't buy it. I really don't buy it. And
But
and so
if it brings more eyes into the VTuber community, isn't it the whole thing a net positive at the end of the day?
yes or no, it depends on how you look at it. If what you view as positive is just so the numbers, you're going to take like the GDP argument. Um, you know, I don't know if you ever heard this joke. I'll tell a quick little joke about this that kind of puts it in the context. You have two millionaires who are walking down a road, right? And one of them stops and he points at a pile of cow shit on the side of the road. He's like, "I'll pay you $1 million to eat that cow shit." And the other millionaire looks at him. He's like, "All right, bet." And so he does, and he eats the cow shit. And the billionaire one gives him the $1 million. They keep walking down the road, and they see another pile of cow shit. And to billionaire B points at that and says to billionaire A, I'll pay you $1 million to eat that cow shit." And so he does, and he pays him $1 million. And so they're walking along, and the other guy's like, "Man, I don't feel so good. Yeah, we spent all this money, but now we just feel like crap because we ate cow shit." And the other's like, "No, no, no, you don't get it. We have created $2 million in GDP growth and two jobs." Like it's I don't. Hopefully, you
But
find that
it's not
funny.
like it was like a closed loop, like in that sort of way, because like she wasn't. She
What
was
I'm
a
saying is there's growth, but you got. I would ask the question: is it really good growth? If you add 1 million people to this hobby, but it's just all they do is they'll post selfies, or they'll make like really lazy models that like and their content is crap and it's not interesting. But you've got more people. Like, is that a good thing?
well,
I would
maybe
argue
not
like
all like
I would.
V2, yeah, but like not maybe not all of them are like V2. I mean, like viewer wise. If she brings more viewers, that's that's a net positive for the VTubers that are already
Well,
here.
it's a net positive for whoever the viewers are watching. And if they're watching that VTuber for because they see them as a real person, they see the selfies, and it's like I don't know, maybe they're Coomers and they're looking at thirst traps, right? It's if they're there for that content, are they really gonna, what percentage of them are really gonna go and look at the actual like more traditional VTubers, right? So you're bringing in eyes, but I would I'm under the impression that it doesn't really work out as well as it sounds on paper. And then again, ultimately, it shifts that Overton window, and so you have less people who are coming in and wanting to be, to put in the effort and be the more traditional VTuber, for again lack of a better term, and they'll just take the quick and easy route of, oh, I'll pay $5 on Fiverr for this default Vroid model, and then I'll post like an ass shot selfie every now and then on Twitter. I'll get plenty of views, get plenty of money, and I'll call myself a VTuber. And so you get more and more of that, and potentially less and less of the good stuff.
Right, but I don't think that that's like a big majority worth pointing out,
Oh, it's not.
right?
It's not. It's not. But again, we are still very. This is still very niche. People seem to forget
Right.
that like they'll be like, oh wow, I'm at like 8K. I'm at like 10K Twitter followers, and I got like 5K Twitch followers. But I mean that's peanuts. Like in the grand scheme of things, it's like I'm not going to say that they're irrelevant, because they're absolutely not irrelevant. They're making content for people to enjoy, but it is still very niche. It's a lot smaller scale. Even the big stuff. I mean, somebody with a million, Gura's got like a million views, subscribers or whatever, or 2 million or whatever. But there's so many channels that have hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions. Like there's really not that many big VTubers, and even though there are a lot of small VTubers in the grand scheme of it, it's still not that much. It still is a very niche hobby, and so the reason that I am kind of wary of this is that I'm very much a person who focuses a lot on precedent. Um, as many of my friends who have just talked about like politics or legal stuff or anything with me will know, I'm very, very, I place a lot of importance on precedents. And so my view on this is it's a niche market that is, entering this rapid mainstream. There you go.
Right. Okay.
Mainstream
Yeah.
uh, attraction of eyes and interest, right? Whether or not that will continue is unsure. But
Right.
if it does, I would prefer if the spectacle that we put if what we put in front of those new eyes is what I would consider. I would like it if what they see when they start looking at VTubing is what I consider the good stuff, right? Because they'll see that,
Mm,
they'll support that, they want more of that, and it sort of snowballs. And so on the other hand, on the other flip side of that, if they see what I would consider bad content, not as good content, and that's what they see, and that's what they support. That's what we get more of. So, again, this is ultimately it ends up sounding very selfish, and it really kind of is. I like the content a certain way, and I think that it's better a certain way, and I want to see more of that, and hence a lot of my thoughts on the matter and expressions of my feeling on the matter are for that purpose.
right. Okay, then let me give you this analogy then, just to sort of like see, does that mean like, because yeah, like let's say for me, right? I love anime, and
Right.
I want new people to, if someone new is coming to me to for my suggestions, right? And I want them to watch only, I want them to get in watching Konosuba or just like any of the ones that I consider like my favorite,
Yeah, 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 the
right?
good
And
shit,
well,
yeah.
right, and so but then they decide, you know what, I like let me hold on, I'm not gonna say, but they like they
Hey,
like they
anything
like
that you
one,
say is bad, I probably think
they
is bad too.
they like something that I think is bad. Does that mean
Just say
that
Naruto. You can say Naruto, it's
does
fine.
that, well, yikes, I don't
No,
know
I'm
about,
kidding. Naruto is
no,
not that bad.
it's kind of
It's not
bad.
great, but it's not great, but it's not. I have watched so much worse.
But okay, so if they don't like the same ones that I like, does that make them any less as fans? Or at least like a VTuber, right? Like they don't have, if they don't like the ones that I like, does that mean that they're any less because they don't like the ones I like, or maybe they just like something different, right? Because they're, I mean,
Mhm.
I personally don't, follow or take in a lot of the content of the people that you were talking about, where they post the IRL selfies in, like, I guess, and that's where I want to clarify with you, is it just IRL selfies in general or in the provocative way that you were talking about?
It's IRL selfies in general. I think
Okay.
that outside of the context of VTubers, I find that uh I'm not a supporter of thirst trap content. I think it has its place, but like
Right.
it is what it is, right?
But could that be just a different kind of, VTuber content rather than not a part of it at all?
I would say the same thing. I think that there's a time and a place for everything. We're gonna echo Professor Oak here. Time and a place for everything, but not now. Like I think that there's nothing stopping them from posting, the selfie, whether it's because they want to, or like they just felt like it, or because like they're just posting it because they want attention. Like whatever their reasoning is, there's no reason that it has to be in the VTuber context. Personally, because partially because I think it doesn't belong there, but like why does it need to be there? Like like I said, there are plenty of VTubers who have IRL alts. You can just have an alt. And I think that the simple explanation is their alt doesn't have as many eyes on them. So, i- you know, going back to your anime thing though, I would say that it actually falls in line with what I'm saying, right? So if you say, I mean, you got people coming in, content consumers, right? coming into anime as a hobby, and you and myself, we like the good shit, right? We like that. We like Konosuba. Maybe we like the more occasional provocative show of like thought provoking, not lewd. Although you can have both in the case of interspecies reviewers. That patrician
True.
choice.
True. Yeah.
Anyways, but like the really good stuff. Things like not necessarily has to be spring, but like stuff like FLCL, Furikuri, Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex, Fade Zero, like all these really good shows, right? Ultimately, content creation is a marketplace. Content consumption is a marketplace. So when the, the reason that it kind of matters when people who would come in and start watching anime, they'll start watching like Naruto, maybe like just something like average, right? And then instead of the good stuff, they get the idea that, oh, this is what anime is, and they start watching like Death March Isekai or Infinite Stratos, just absolute garbage, right? They are consumers in that marketplace, and the producers of the content are going to respond accordingly. So you are going to get less and less experimental stuff, really high quality stuff, because they will see, hey, I just have to do the bare minimum basic garbage, filter feeder stuff, and they'll push out more of that because that's how the market works. So I feel like that's actually probably, I don't know why I hadn't thought to just use that as an example. Partially because it makes me yeah, I don't really agree with people throwing around gatekeeper as like an insult, because gatekeeper is just kind of like it's kind of like a dirty word that's like not really used properly. It's more of a buzzword, and saying this is gonna make me sound like an anime gatekeeper too.
Let's get a proper like definition then from you, because I saw a lot of people throwing that word around. So how are you defining that?
I would say that gatekeeping to me is how do I describe this? I would say protecting or maintaining the integrity of a concept or hobby or something that you enjoy. Uh, whether that means you're actually actively doing something, like, if you are going to say, you know, you want to watch anime, you have to watch good anime. Oh, I see you're watching bad anime. Okay, say goodbye to your kneecaps. That's gatekeeping, but that's bad gatekeeping. Whereas if you were to say, hey, you're interested in anime, huh? I know a fair amount a fair amount about this. Why don't I give you some good stuff? Be supportive. Say like, look, this is what's so great about anime. Let me expose you to a little bit of that, rather than having like, plenty of people who watch like kind of the more mediocre anime, they don't really like, partially because maybe they're not that interested in anime, which is totally fine. But they may not necessarily really be fully aware of all the better stuff, right? And so they're kind of unintentionally doing themselves a disservice. Same thing with the what in my opinion, same thing with the VTubers. If you're gonna come into the VTube sphere and what you see is, you know, well, again, it sounds mean, but lower quality VTubers, we'll say, just for the ease of, it sounds mean, but just for ease of communication here. And on all they see is lower quality VTubers, like they're missing out.
Defining, how are we defining
Um,
that?
we'll just say default Vroid model doesn't bother to maintain a character, post selfies all the time. Like, doesn't
Okay.
could literally, there's nothing. The only thing about them that makes them a VTuber, quote unquote, is the fact that they have a model, right? Like, they're not really.
Well, some of them, like I was saying, they use it instead of as a character, it's just an interchangeable, webcam that they would prefer to use instead of an actual webcam showing themselves.
Right, but again, is that enough to differentiate itself? Is that enough to differentiate
Right.
between normal streamer who just hit a button and turned from face cam to rigged webcam, or what we're kind of trying to term as a VTuber, right? Again, if Pokimane were to just all of a sudden turn on her avatar, does that automatically just make her a VTuber? Like, where do you want to draw your line here? And I've sort of picked where I want to draw my line.
Right. Okay, yeah, and I think you said where you drew your line was with the top dogs, like you said, like Hololive, Kizuna Eye, all the big guys over there. But is it justifiable, or is it right to judge at least our version, the EN version of a VTuber, against the Japanese version of their VTuber? Is it okay to hold each other to the same standards,
To the
even
same
though the
standards.
even though the cultures are so different? You know, here
Right.
in the EN scene, we're so open with each other. We don't really hide much, although, and the character is more something we do for fun. But over there, you know, in the Japanese scene, the character is something that is of utmost importance, not only because to suspend disbelief, but also for, you know, for their own protection, right? So is it
Yeah.
okay to
Yeah.
judge them on the same level if it's different cultures?
I would say that it absolutely is okay to judge anything on any level. I think that the idea that we can't judge, we can't have like judgments, negative opinions on things is a little. Not that I'm saying that
Or
that's what you're
not
saying,
judgments, but
but
holding each other to that level of standard where their culture is different from ours. So like, why would we have to be, you know, held up to their standard if they if how they operate normally is different from us? You know, we want to be more open because that's just how the culture is on the EN scene, but on the JP scene, it's only character based. So you know, because they have to be more closed off for their crazy super fans. So
yeah,
and I guess like,
uh,
you know, from someone, let's say someone from a lower perspective, you know, not lower, like doesn't have as much following, lo-
a smaller VTuber. Yeah.
someone from a lower following where they're just like they're new to it. They're new to it, right? So like I'm just getting into VTubing and now I have to maintain this character even though everyone's been so nice and open with me. You know, is it all right that all of a sudden I have to hide up, you know, myself now because the people in Japan are portraying a character, so I have to follow along with that in order to be considered a part of the community, or what are you thinking on that?
Right. So I would say that I don't think it's right to force anybody to do anything. Just as a general statement, like, where do you get off forcing somebody to do something or not do something? I'm
But
not
I
here
mean,
to force
if
anybody
they
to do
want
anything.
to be a part of your definition of a VTuber, they kind of have to force this character, and they have to kind of keep themselves, you know, and you know, themselves separate.
I mean, well, in that vein, uh, if you wanna be taken seriously as a content creator, and you just come in and all you do is like nothing, like you don't really make content, you don't really do like you don't put the like you'd say, oh well, it's like a lot of effort, but like the to be part of things, to do certain things like content creation, you know, you're expected to put in effort. I don't think that that's an unfair thing. Should we hold them to the same standard? That's sort of a subjective opinion there. I mean, I would say that it by doing so, it ends up being better content. There are certain things I'm well aware of the differences in culture. Believe me, there are certain things that EN VTubers do that JP VTubers do that I think that they really shouldn't do. For example, the whole Papa Mama thing for the artist and rigger. It's
I
not like
thought
a
that was
huge
funny.
pet peeve,
I thought
but
that
it
was
is it
funny.
is very weird to hear an English speaker
Yeah,
from a Western culture be like, "Oh yes, I was made by my mama." Like, do you want your bottle? Like, come on, you know.
I
Again, I'm,
see
I'm kind of
what
just ripping here, but
I see
it,
what you
it's
mean.
it's a little bit different because culturally that's a bit more normalized within the sort of Japanese anime sphere,
It's
right?
part
It
of,
doesn't
yeah, it's part of the
it doesn't quite
culture.
translate as well. So yes, I would agree that there are differences, but what I ultimately get back to is it's the concept is what's interesting, and so if you're gonna ditch that, like
So in order for them to be a VTuber, they need to not show themselves as a person, but to stay true to the concept and not
if
be
they
the.
want to make good VTuber content, what I think that the average, in again, in terms of the overarching VTuber sphere, not just the end, they want to make good VTuber content that is in line with what the average VTuber fan wants. Then yeah, that's kind of what the average it's what the modern buyer wants, right? It's it's a matter. I mean, it's just a matter of numbers here at this point.
All right, I think, you know, aside from your word choice from your tweet, what people are maybe a little bit upset about is is just really trying to see where what your definition was of a VTuber. Now, is it, you know, like you were saying, is it anyone who uses a virtual character that's interesting to you is a VTuber, or is it because they're not interesting to you because they do content in what you think is not interesting, right? They're not a VTuber.
Right. And again, to sort of point something out, that original Twitlonger was me at the end of a very stressful work week. Hadn't eaten or slept well in 2 days, and had some stuff going on that made me rather distraught. So I was not in a great mental state. And so that essentially was just well, it was a stream of conscious kind of rant. Right. So what I'm getting at though is I didn't really define very well what I was talking about. I just sort of like bitched a bit about some pet peeves, right? In the follow up that I did, I kind of laid out what I had mentioned earlier, like my 4 rules/5. Where these are very simple, easily communicatable. Call them rules, I guess. That sounds a bit restrictive, but rules that these are the check marks for being a VTuber. Have a model, have some degree of character, upload video content, maintain that separation from your real life person, and then call yourself a VTuber.
Well, I have it here, so we can go down the list actually.
Yeah.
So the first
If
one
you wouldn't
was
mind, I'm gonna run to the restroom real quick.
oh, let's go ahead. We'll take it. We'll
I've
take
been
a
drinking a
break.
lot of water.
I'm gonna do the same. We'll take a quick break. All right, we're back.
All right, we're back.
All right, cool. So yeah, actually, we can go ahead and because I have the tweet here, so that we can go ahead and talk about your definition, if that's cool.
Yeah.
So we'll go off the first. Have a model, PNG, 2D, and 3D. And so that seems to be, the case. The whole point of VTuber is that you are working based off of a model,
Well,
right?
remember what I said. It's more so that most of these are a vehicle. They're a means to for the concept to like be done. So
Right.
it's
Which leads to the
having the
second
model
point,
is not
right?
the central point, right?
This,
Yeah.
so we'll go down to the second point, which is to have some degree of character beyond I'm a person who streams.
Hmm.
Now character, you're referring to like backstory,
And anything. It could be
anything.
if you like the easiest way is to just have a bit of lore and work that into your content, like the way that you act. If you want to go the extra mile, being an engaging character, just as not necessarily like in the concept of an anime character, but like as a content creator, like being a little larger than life, right? Having that character, that's sort of the next level of it. But I mean, just having a
Right.
bit of backstory that somehow factors into your content or how you act is fine.
And you think that's where the starting line is. You don't think that's where what the criteria is to be, in your definition, a good VTuber. You're just saying, oh, you need to have some semblance of a character if you're going to be a VTuber.
Trying to think.
Like, is
Yeah,
is having
I would
lore,
say
or
that's
like yeah, is having something like story wise the bare minimum, or at least the starting point to for you to consider them good, is what we're
it's.
is
I'd say it's sort of both, but we'll call it a starting point. Like
that's the starting
you
point.
can't get
Okay.
to that. You can't get to that the idea of so this virtual character, right, without these steps. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you're like you want to be a virtual character, let's say, right? How do you do that, right? You gotta, what are you just going to be a disembodied voice? I mean, you kind of could, but that doesn't really work. Like you want the model, so they have something to look at, right? You want some degree of care, give some personality to that, right? And then how are they going to see it in the first place? It's the next one, right? Go ahead and read it.
Right, which is to upload or stream some kind of content. But now I'm interested in that second point then. Would you consider someone who makes like VR chat content? Because it's a virtual avatar, and the whole
Mm, mm,
point is
mm,
that
mm.
like they're not characters, but they're people, and this is just their way of showing like a virtual avatar, right? Like, it's not a character. It's not a the wording, I guess, is not virtual character, but virtual avatar. Would those guys be considered VTubers, or where do you put the line for that? Because they've been around a lot long. No, I wouldn't say a lot longer,
Yeah,
but
no, you're right. The idea of people doing VR chat streams and content and stuff,
has been around for a
with
while.
predates Keys and I, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that, you know what? I think I will solidify. I think that you got to have some amount of character because those people were not VTubers. They weren't the concept didn't even exist, right? The VTubers who came after were doing it wasn't just that. They had that character, and the majority of them still do to this day. So I would say that you know what, it's less a starting line for good content as it is it's sort of a requirement to get to that the concept of having this character, right?
And this is based off of what what I guess the VTubers that got you into the scene, or the top dogs. Wait, is it
Yeah,
the
just every VTuber ever since 2016, basically.
so okay? So what happens if then there's a new top dog with like an EN VTuber with 10 million subs, and they're doing they're the person that everyone looks to for VTuber advice, because they're the top they're the Mr.
Uh-huh,
Beast of the
uh-huh.
VTuber world. And now all of a sudden they also start posting IRL content. Maybe not, maybe a little selfie here and there that has nothing to do with their character. Could they, they're the top dog, could they be considered a VTuber? Like, can they change the definition because
Yeah,
they have that, market share in a way to
two
give?
two points, 2 points,
Right.
because that is a very good point. All right,
Uh-huh.
I will say that uh, it's something that I've kind of said privately. Like, look, if Hololive comes out and they got Korone just straight up just streaming with a face cam, then first of all, I'll eat my fucking shoes because
Mm.
no chance that happens. Because that they know that that's not what people want, right?
Right.
But if they do, if Hololive again, I've kind of said this, Hololive has made hand cams okay. All right. If Hololive comes out and says this is what we're doing now, I'll be disappointed. But at that point, an argument can be made that look, it's really been. I would say that the content has the concept has kind of been lost in that case, but that it becomes a much more shaky ground to argue on. Like the reason why I think that my argument is very solid is just because the numbers back me up. Um, you know, it's not like I'm trying to think. Oh, also, real quick thing about I should have mentioned about posting like pictures of like IRL things around you, right? Uh, several Hololive members have done videos where it's their model superimposed over like actual IRL video footage. Where like I think was it Korone or Miko who was doing like a promotional video for some local like center or something like that.
She
So
was
I
like
think
going
that
around in
actually
Google Maps or something. I think I've seen it.
it's like somebody had a camera, like one of the Hololive staff had a camera and was walking around, and then in post they had Miko or Cornet or some whoever it was
Oh,
like
like
superimposed in there. So that
okay.
actually that is Hololive setting precedent for
Right.
pictures of your plants being okay. Anyways,
Right.
um, and so going back to what you said, I would say also it kind of depends on how they became the top dog VTuber. If they were again, say it was PewDiePie with however many tens of millions of subs he has, it decides to become a VTuber and then say, all right, I'm the biggest VTuber. This is how VTubing is now. I wouldn't really say that counts. I think that if Hololive or a similarly sized large VTuber or VTuber group were to start from the bottom, start from the just from the beginning, they were VTuber, and then eventually decide, hey, we're doing we're face cams now. All right, face cam gang, and do that. Then that has a bit of credence. But again, I don't see that happening because that's quite frankly, it's not what people want.
So then the definition does change depending on who the top dog is, and if they got okay. So what happens? This weird. I don't know who. I'm sure this could be lore for someone. What if right?
Hmm.
They are they exist in like the virtual world, and then their lore is that they matrix out into like a 3D body, and now they're posting selfies like, hey guys, it's part of my lore. It's I can I come out,
That's
I take the red pill.
that's a
Yeah,
little.
it's character, it's lore though. I took the red pill, I
Yeah,
made a phone call, and now I'm in my 3D body.
that's I would still argue against that because not only is that incredibly murky, but like it kind of goes back to the fact that we all know that it's real people
It's pretty
behind it.
interesting though.
So
No
like
one's done it.
it's nobody has done it because I don't think really anybody would be interested in that. I may end up eating my words in a month when somebody does that, but you know, we know that VTubers are people. As VTuber content consumers, we know that they're real. They're not AIs. They're not anime characters. Anime characters are voiced by real life people. Like we
Right.
understand that, but it's part of the concept. Part of what's important to maintain is you know is that separation, the suspension of disbelief. So like I know that Ethan, whoever or whatever from Mission Impossible, I know that's Tom Cruise, right? But
Right.
as long as he doesn't stop and say, "Oh yeah, by the way, I went with my wife down to the Starbucks and got a cool, they got the pumpkin spice latte. I was talking with Jim from the camera crew." As long as he doesn't stop in the middle of the movie and do that, like I can suspend my disbelief that this is the character, and not the actor, right? There's a suspension of disbelief, and just given the nature of VTubing and how it's these virtual avatars, the moment you bring in and remind people that, hey, I'm a real person, that's when you start to lose it.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just think that, instead, I think that there's a market for both, is what
Oh,
I'm
there's
seeing.
always there's a market for everything.
And
It's a
that,
matter of
like,
like
and I
how
don't
much of a
think,
market.
whether it's a market that I like or want to be a part of, I don't think it's any less. I just think it's different. Like, there's some anime genres that, like, I don't touch, but it's not that I think, like, for example, like, this is a weird one. I don't really watch hentai. I just, like, I watch
That's
a
a
lot of
lie. That's a
I
lie.
no,
That we all watch hentai.
I don't. I like watching, and I am a filthy weeb for isekai trash. I love the isekai genre so much, but I don't. It's like, at least how I view hentai is it's like, imagine you're watching SpongeBob and then you go on Google and you see that someone made SpongeBob porn,
Like
and
SpongeBob
that's
X Patrick's. Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's hentai. Like, in my brain, that's not to say like there aren't any stories that, like, that are really good in hentai, but, like, that's just, I don't know. It's not something I usually touch. So, but it's not to say that, like, anyone I think, like, who watches hentai is any less. It's just they're into something different. In a way,
Right. So
an
so what you're
argument
saying
could be
is it's
made that they're perverting my genre of anime by doing something so lowly to the form of characters that I like, in the art style that I like. I could say, like, it's perverse, but I think it's just different. Could the same be said then, like, for VTubers, where it's just they're doing it in a different way, but maybe it's not less, it's just something I don't like. It's just
right. Well,
different.
the conclusion is sort of self-evident there. It's not that the content is any less, it's just different. Question is it different enough that it would have a different term? So for example, going back to your anime and hentai, right? They have they're different terms for a reason,
Well,
because they're
kind
different.
of,
They're
kind
different.
of.
They're different enough.
There's a mathematic formula that I actually came up with. Uh, I say I came up with,
And
but
this
I was streaming one day and someone asked me that, like, hey, like, why do you watch anime? Like, isn't it all hentai basically? And here's the formula that we basically spent the stream coming up with. It's all hentai is anime, but not all anime is hentai. That
uh-huh.
was the conclusion. That
All VTubers are
anime
content
anime
creators, but not
is
all
the
content creators are
umbrella.
VTubers.
Right. But then
Hmm.
the same thing could be said that underneath this content creator umbrella, there's another umbrella, of because there's different types of content creators in general. You know,
Hmm.
um, like, even, there's umbrellas within umbrellas, basically, is what I'm getting at. So could
So you're
it
saying
be
a subgenre of VTuber, basically.
subgenre? Like, yeah. So, like, it's a subgenre within an already established genre, and, like, that's what we're seeing, that VTubing is growing so much. Could it be that instead of it being something completely different, it's opening up a new subgenre that hasn't been seen before?
Uh, I would have a twofold argument against it. I'd say that number one, it has been seen before. It's just called being a regular streamer with gimmicks. And the other thing is that you can have, there's a point where even if it's an offshoot of something, is it really anime, right? So if you have, how, maybe you do, maybe you don't. There are some like things at the end of like an anime like ending card where it or like an ending clip where they do like a cooking segment or something from the show. Like I think didn't Dr. Stone do something like that? Like they had the real life chemistry experiment. Like it's part of the anime, right? But it's not actually anime. It's just live action, right? You can have stuff that sprouts off of that genre, but I think that if there's if what if the core concept is abandoned to that extent, I wouldn't say that it's a subgenre. It just becomes a separate thing. And again, nothing wrong with that. I just think that if you want to do that, call it something else, right? I kind of early on I was like, oh yeah, why don't we just call them V streamers because they're not like well that was more like for people streaming on Twitch, just don't call yourself a VTuber. You're not a YouTuber, right? Call yourself a V streamer. But I mean, there's no like the only reason for them to call themselves VTubers is because they want the benefits of that come with being a VTuber, right? Where
What
people are there for
benefits?
something. Well, the
Hmm.
the the audience,
I mean, the audience
you
is
know.
already so small. I think it would work to their detriment that they would want because there are a lot of people who think it's still weird. Like, not even anime fans. They're not all anime fans think this are on board with this VTuber thing. So, wouldn't it be to their detriment really to do something so weird if they already had like a larger established like audience who
If they already
knew
had a
their
larger one,
IRL?
then yeah,
Okay.
that would be weird. It would be a really weird, dumb thing to do. But I would say that there's plenty of examples from early this year where when that whole big explosion of VTuber interest on English Twitter happened, you had so many people who they would literally they'd get their character design, and sometimes it was good, sometimes it was like crap. And in both of those cases, a lot of time you would have people who they wouldn't make any content. They were VTweeters, right? And just by putting VTuber in their bio or in their description or like tags, they were shooting up to like 500, 1K in like a week. And so that's ultimately it kind of fell apart. But you know, you see what I'm saying there, right? So there is a benefit to it. There's a reason that even though they're not really doing what VTubers do, by calling themselves VTubers, they can still kind of get that attention. And so again, it kind of rubs me the wrong way when people do that with like a hobby I enjoy.
So then, what about people then? I'm gonna just list an example for this one. Lumi, Lumi, yeah, the
Mm.
wolf, right?
Lumi's the one based on the Meriwether.
Right.
Meriwether's the illustrator, right?
So recently, she came out with IRL pictures, but she's dressed up in
Cosplay, right?
character. Yeah, and now she's going to conventions, dressed up, and
Hmm.
and like all of that. Now, does that diminish or maybe enhance? Because she's already in character, and someone maybe who wants to see her streams, already saw her in character IRL. Maybe she wasn't acting in character, but she was dressed up. And maybe that's their in on VTubers. It's a little easier to get in because it was a cosplay in a sense. But does
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
does that diminish the definition of your definition of a VTuber, or does that fit in line somewhere?
So that's a good point. I was actually thinking of that and then something else as well as kind of examples. But I would say that becomes it sort of becomes complicated, but also kind of not complicated. Number one, I think that the fact that Lumi is cute as fuck. Like let's not beat around the bush, and the cosplay is really good.
Okay.
Um, you know, the, credit where credit is due, right? If you are going to decide to post IRL content, if you're at least putting in a ton of effort with the cosplay and you're actually, pretty easy on the eyes, like I won't be quite as I won't be quite as harsh. I'm only well, I'm not human. I'm an alien, but you get what I'm saying, right? That said, I still think that it's kind of an unnecessary quandary that we've created here. Why not just have a cosplay account separate? Like I think again, it kind of goes back to what I said. There's a time and a place for everything, and I don't feel like certain things kind of belong in the context of being a VTuber. Not because I don't like them, but just because it doesn't quite fit, right?
So does she fit that definition? Well, let's finish your
I would
definitions,
say,
right? Because we have
yeah, yeah.
yeah. We'll finish
I would
and then we
say
can
that
yeah.
activity does not. I would say that just
Okay.
because you've dressed up as a cosplay of your character, um, does not give you like a pass past rule 4 of not posting like selfies.
Right. So to finish up the definitions, I'll just read from one again: is to have the model,
Uh-huh.
PNG, 2D, 3D, to have some degree of character beyond. I'm a person who streams, and then upload or stream some kind of video content. Okay, yeah, and then do not post selfies or stream with face cam on their VTuber account.
Right, that
Um,
last is the key part.
I can see, I can see. Number 1 and 3 being like the definitive standard just across the board with everyone. You have a model, and of course you make content with it. That seems to be, at least abroad, the generally agreed upon definition of a VTuber. But then you say the character, and the character, I don't know. I'm like 50%
That's
with you
ultimately
there.
it's ultimately I would say the reason you're 50% is because it's very subjective. Um,
Right.
you
Like
know,
what defines a character? And then if I don't think the character is interesting enough, then do I think that it should be called a VTuber or not? I think I think some of that is a subjective.
yeah, I would say that is the loose that out of all the rules, that's the relatively loose one because it is very subjective. Everything else is like yes or no, like have a model or not,
And
make
then
video
and
content or
then
not, selfies or
yes.
not,
And then
right?
the last one, do not post selfies or stream with face cam on their VTuber account. Well, then that's where I asked the question with Lumi. Well, she's in cosplay and she's meeting everyone at a convention, in that cosplay, and people know her for that. It's not like they're disillusioned because I mean they're going for her, right? And she's dressed in
Mhm.
cosplay. So really she
I would
fits.
say that avatar that activity is not VTuber activity.
It's
I,
not
I would say
VTuber.
it is an action or content that does not jive with the concept. It's
Right.
not that I don't like it. I just again time and place. Why not
I
just
agree.
have
Yeah. The
yeah,
activity
just have a
is
separate
not
account.
that of
It's
a
easy.
VTuber because they're not engaging with any like virtual medium. But does that mean that the title, what we call it, her, do we change her title from VTuber to content creator because she posted an IRL selfie with in her cosplay? I think that's where, because I can
Yeah. So
agree. Yeah, if
yeah,
she's IRL, then yeah, she's not doing a VTuber activity. She's IRL. But does that mean that since she does that, is she no longer a VTuber? She's a content creator, even though people know her as using a virtual avatar.
yeah. So that partially goes back to whether or not we can police what people can and can't call themselves. I would say that by doing so, I think that the term VTuber does not fit her content as well anymore, and I think that, it would fit a much better fit would just be content creator or YouTuber, you know?
Even though 99% of her content is VTuber content.
Even though 99% of her content is VTuber content, when you start making content that isn't really that goes counter to that concept, even though it doesn't automatically, like, bar you from being a VTuber, I would say that now a more general, content label applies better.
Okay, then yeah, I can understand it, at least from your perspective. Just you've been in it for a while, and so you grow and you like you like it done a certain way, right? And
Mhm.
then you see that it changes, and well, maybe it's not changing in the direction that you would like it to be, right?
Right, right. I'm fine with changes, they're just changes that I think are not for the better.
Yeah, I see eye to eye on, like, number one, right? Have a model, obviously, and then number two, I don't know, because like I think.
I feel like we can agree that it's subjective and it as a general kind of statement, the glove fits like what currently exists, but it is ultimately kind of subjective. So that's like yeah,
hmm Okay, then
I think we can agree on that.
what if, okay, yeah, well, because I was gonna say, like, what if I'm only like a VTuber, but I have no story? I tell no one nothing about like my story. Like no one knows anything about my character. But then at the same time, I don't do face cam. I'm still following that rule. Am I still a VTuber?
At that point, I think that an argument can still be made that because we don't know who you are, what you're like off cam, right? whatever you're doing, whatever your personality, unless you're just like literally Microsoft Sam, like you don't. Well, even Microsoft Sam has personality, but like you know, you an argument can be made that your quote unquote streamer personality is enough to satisfy this requirement. I personally think that you're missing out on making better content that way, but I you know what, I can concede to that argument. I wouldn't say that is necessarily incorrect, right?
Hmm. Okay, then let's just go ahead and use me as the guinea pig then, right?
Okay.
I'll go and we'll go through the checklist for me. I have a model,
Uh huh.
check 3D, and number two, I have. I mean, at least my visuals tell there's a character, um, but I haven't told anyone like lore. Why the hell am I a bald guy with a chain and a carrot on my necklace, right? Like, there's no.
Hmm.
I haven't told anyone what the lore is, right? And then number three, I make video content, I stream, and then number four, I don't post selfies.
All right. And then secret number five: do you call yourself a VTuber?
Yes, that's like it's
Honestly,
in.
I'd say you fit. I'd say you fit. Because you're, even if you haven't necessarily, like, and not everybody's gonna right off the bat do like a lore dump. You've
Uh-huh.
you can go into one aspect of character design is personality. You should be able to look at a character and glean something from their personality just based on aspects of their character. So even if it's a bit of mystery, and a lot of times that's good. Like you haven't explained why you said a carrot necklace or carrot choker or something like that.
Yeah, it's like a chain necklace with a
Yeah,
carrot. So as if
a
as if
carrot chain.
the lore, as if the mystery of it was part of the lore in itself.
I would say that still kind of counts. On top of the fact that when you're creating video content, you have a personality.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. You're not yeah,
Yeah.
you're not just like a blank slate, right? So that's again, I would say I agree. That's enough. That's it. That you don't like that's enough
Right.
to sort of satisfy my lofty requirements, right?
Okay. Then what if, right? This is curiosity now.
Uh-huh.
They don't, because it doesn't really go against your rules where, like, Iron Mouse, for example, right? Where we don't
Mhm.
know what she looks like. So, but at the end, but on the character wise, we know she's Puerto Rican. We know she has
Mhm.
an illness, right? But we also know character wise that she's basically Satan. So do we consider that a VTuber? Because she hasn't shown us any visuals, but we know about her real. We know where to draw the line in terms of separation from her and character. But she's also one of the biggest, ENV VTubers today.
I
At
would say
least, yeah.
based because I don't watch a lot of Iron Mouse. I'm gonna say something potentially unpopular. I nails on a chalkboard. I really feel bad, but I can't stand her voice. It just I don't know what it is. It but so I would say that I mean because again think about it this way. If
Hmm.
I if I were to kind of shift like that, or if I were to like click my mouse right. Well, I shouldn't have clicked that. Uh, if I were to hopefully I didn't mess anything up on your end.
No,
Um,
you're good.
so anyways,
Yeah.
if I do that or like there's aspects of, oh well, I now know that he's sitting on a real chair, and he's too stupid to set the money aside to buy a proper chair. He's sitting on a stupid Costco chair, right? I know that he's clicking a mouse. I know that he's got a desk. He's located somewhere in the United States. Like you yes, you know that, but that's not really enough to break that suspension of disbelief, right? Same again, going back to the actor. I know it's Tom Cruise, all right, but they do a good enough job, and the fact that he's climbing down the side of a building, like you can it enables that suspension of disbelief. So the fact that people know that Iron Mouse is Puerto Rican, or that she has her
Or not that
illness,
people know, but she openly talks about it
right, right. Even though you say that, like
as
it's
if she's not,
it
as if
doesn't
it's not part of her character. It's actually what's going on with her.
there's not if she were to say, yeah, guys, so getting really meta for a second. This isn't about my VTuber character at all. This is about my IRL self. I as a real person have an illness. Like then yes, that but if she just kind of talks about it, that's totally fine because there's nothing explicitly saying that that's not part of her character. Not that I want
Okay.
to say that she's like making it up or anything, but you see what I mean? Like you can push a certain amount without losing the suspension of disbelief.
So if she decides to, take a moment in her streams, like, guys, I'm gonna take a moment to take medicine because I got this thing, I need to take care of, then is that
That's
ruining?
fine.
Oh,
No,
that's
that's still fine.
cool.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I guess it's
Again,
just when it's visually disturbing
it
your
when it
suspense.
visually when it visual is the easiest way to do it, but if you're explicitly breaking that suspension of disbelief for your audience, then that's where you're losing the plot, right? So, do not post selfies or stream with face cam on. That's more of like a because I feel like people in general, nobody really would stop and say, "Oh yeah, by the way, as a real person, not a VTuber, I need to do this." Like people don't say it like that, so I didn't really think of that for the wording of it. I just kind of put the most obvious thing that it's pretty simple to do. Just don't post selfies, you know. But hopefully that kind of fleshes out what I mean. Like the concept is the concept because of things like that. Like the concept inherently sort of implies that suspension of the ability to suspend disbelief. I
I
think
see.
that's kind of what's important
I
or
see.
part of what's important.
Right. Okay,
But yeah,
then
so the rules are far less restrictive than they sound. They're
right.
really not that restrictive.
Right. Well, okay, then I want to give it another example that,
Hmm.
I'm just now the examples of where like are just coming in my head. So I'm not
Yeah, yeah,
trying to
yeah,
like disprove, I'm just trying to see like where you stand, I'm actually
yeah,
curious
yeah,
on where
yeah.
you stand. So
Yeah, no, let's flesh this out.
there's Bunny GIF, I say GIF, some people say GIF, however you pronounce it.
Uh-huh,
Uh
uh-huh.
she does
I'll hunt you down later. Don't worry, I'm
yeah,
making a note.
she she does, both streams, right? Where she will IRL stream, she
On the
will
same account.
on Twitch, right? But let me get through this, right? She does IRL
Uh-huh.
stream on Twitch and IRL stream or VTuber stream, on the same account. But on Twitter, it's two separate accounts, two separate people.
I would say that uh, if I was only aware of the Twitter accounts, I would say that she's a VTuber. But then being aware of the Twitch accounts, I would say she's not doing it right. She's like again, why
Mm,
can't she just have two Twitch accounts?
a lot of
It's not
work.
it's not hard. People do it.
But that's not a VTuber in your definition, even though she's
I would
mostly.
say that what she is doing is not in line with the concept. Uh, by having her IRL content on her VTuber account.
And I guess anything IRL is where maybe not the character, but maybe at least IRL is where you draw the line.
IRL is just IRL like facecam selfie is just the easiest example and the most common example. Because you
Oh,
could, like I said, you can push very far with talking about IRL stuff without actually breaking character and suspension of disbelief.
okay, and character and suspension of disbelief. What about VTubers who like post like twit longers or like of stuff that's like going on in their life that like is really crazy heavy stuff that's nothing to do with their character, people getting surgeries or like stuff on that like on their VTuber account. Where do you kind of stand on that?
That becomes that I would say that plays along with the suspension of disbelief. At that point, it's sort of up to individual interpretation of whether or not that really breaks your suspension of disbelief. I could certainly see a lot of people having it broken at that point. I'm not. I'm generally not the kind of person to put things out there, which is why it was sort of very out of character for me to do that rant twit longer. Just because separate from VTuber stuff in general, I don't really like see the appeal in pouring out your life story for like randos on the internet. That's we've all been through computer class. You're not supposed to share personal information with strangers. But I would say yeah, I would say that potentially yes, potentially no. I think depending on how they word it and the lengths and the extent to which they go, if it really just starts breaking suspension of disbelief, at that point you're pushing it a bit too far.
So I guess they are VTubers.
It is possible for them to do that and still be VTubers, still fit the
Oh,
VTuber
okay.
mold,
So I
but it just
guess
depends.
Right. So instead of it being like a line drawn, it's like a more of a progressive bar that if they break your suspension of disbelief enough, then they're no longer
Then
in
yeah,
your mind.
then they've kind of broken that, they've invalidated the concept, they've kind of broken it, and then now we're kind of back to the whole discussion on that.
And do you think that your concept fits, like, is it just a concept that you go by based on like the VTubers that you follow, or something that you believe should be a standard that everyone should follow as well? Or is it
I
just a
think
standard that you have for VTubers that you're interested in?
yes, yes, and yes. It's
Okay.
sort of
Yeah, yeah.
it's sort of. So it's
Okay.
what we're talking about is a fleshed out definition that I have come up with. That that it does not that is it is that I have come up with that is in line with basically what 99% of VTubers do and have done. So you know, it just gets down to like, do you think that that makes it valid or not? Like, ultimately, it is just it's just my it's sort of how I go about appraising VTubers and their content. I don't think that I have any right to force everybody to do that. Would I be happy if people would follow this a bit more? Absolutely, and I think that it would be better both for me as a content consumer as well as other content consumers, and for them as a creator.
Right.
I think that's the best way I can answer that.
Right. Okay. And do you think then that, because you mentioned that like even if they do talk about like IRL stuff but don't do it enough to suspend your
Mhm.
disbelief, yeah, like would it be then that instead of them being outside the rule that maybe they're an exception to the rule?
I mean, that's sort of the thing about exceptions. They kind of need to be exceptions. Going back to the Twitter trends of like post your thighs, post your tits, post your face. Like again, I want to clarify
You
something.
mean
People
posting
kind of called me
IRL or your model wise?
like no, like IRL. I'm talking about
Oh,
the
okay.
IRL Twitter
Okay.
trends. I want to clarify something real quick. People were calling me like a sexist and a misogynist, but that's and some people were kind of wondering why I didn't apologize for that. I didn't apologize for that because it wasn't the case. That was sort of people kind of interpreted it a certain way. I was everything that I said was meant to apply both to male and female VTubers. I thought it was kind of funny how they're like, "Oh, well, you used filters and makeup as the scripture. You're talking about women." I'm like, "What do you think? Men can't use filters and makeup? Huh? That's not. Ooh, I don't know if you say that on Twitter." But anyways, so I want to clarify this. I will often use examples that more often than not pertain to sort of female VTubers and just women, but that's just it's really a matter of coincidence. It's because more often than not, that's sort of what I'm encountering more. So it's sort of like how in like a gendered language, you might group like the word for a group might be masculine even if it includes women. You know what I mean? So just to clarify that, what were we talking about again? I went on a huge tangent
No,
there.
well, no, we can go based off of that because I mean, some people were telling you were sexist or misogynistic. I mean,
Yeah,
you
I don't really pay them any heed. They don't know me, and they clearly either didn't read, misread, or misinterpreted what I said.
but you know, if it takes a quick glance at Twitter, or not even at Twitter, but just the thread to show that most of them were women, at least showing their
Yeah, like I said,
selfies.
it it's not that I'm targeting women. It's just that the examples, the majority of them just happen to be women. Like that's not really my fault. That's
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I see the
I
wording, and
was
I'm
thinking
trying.
I had male VTubers in mind when I posted that. Just for the
I'm
record.
trying not to go based off of your wording, but really just trying to extrapolate the meaning, which is why, I'm not trying to, argue it with you, but at least just try
Uh-huh.
to understand what, you were just trying to say here. And it
To be fair, the slang that I used, like e-thought and attention whore, those are gender neutral terms. Those are gender neutral terms.
ethought?
If
I
you look
thought
up their
ethought
definition, yeah,
was
yeah, no, e-thought is it's more commonly used for to describe women. Same with attention whore, but it can be used for both, and it doesn't describe a gender. It describes a behavior. Um, If
Well,
you look up the definitions on Urban Dictionary, you'll see that they are gender agnostic,
well, yeah. Actually, I'm looking at it. I'm
and
just looking at.
I use them as such.
You
Yeah,
did say uh,
I can see
the
why people would interpret
majority of
that, but yeah,
VTubers pictures I've seen, regardless of gender, are frankly
uh-huh,
average looking. So, not that I
yeah.
agree
Oh,
or
people got really
disagree.
mad about that.
Yeah,
They
not
got
that
really
I
mad about
agree
that.
or disagree with that statement, but the fact that you did say, regardless of gender, you weren't holding back on any
Yeah.
on
To be
any
fair, it
specific
was
one.
kind of a dumb. It was a dumb non-statement. What I
Okay.
essentially said was the majority are average, which is like
Okay.
it's yeah, like obviously that's how a bell curve works. Like the majority are average. Like so it was kind of pointless for me to say that because like obviously.
Hmm.
Um
And tell me, what kind of like I know you're already saying like some of the crazy stuff, but like what were some of like the craziest stuff that was happening to you like after
oh
you posted that?
I somebody linked me a particular reply from one of Fruit, like the Vishojo Fruit, one of
Yeah.
her followers who said and I quote I, I think this is exactly what he said. Like that
Hmm.
ratio ain't enough. We need to take his life. And I was like, damn, bro. Like, are you okay? You good? Oh my god, take my life over a twit longer. Yeah, so it was kind of crazy. I know some people spammed my my Twitter account with like password resets and stuff, and were like trying to get into my account. But I have like two factor, so like you know I wasn't really worried. I just thought it was I just thought it was kind of sad. Like, you know, I know that I kind of look like a jerk, but essentially what I did was just yell into the wind. I didn't actually and the two examples that I mentioned, I made sure not to say any names or anything. They just, again, they were just examples, the two that I happened to see when I opened Twitter just then. So it was kind of wild to see people like witch hunt me specifically over like for voicing a general opinion and not really targeting or harassing anybody. It was kind of wild, but like that's Twitter for you.
And like now, do you think that you could have worded it better,
Oh yeah, I really
or
shouldn't
do
have.
you
I really
still stand
should
by
have
like the
just.
tone of it?
I think the tone. I'm not gonna pretend that that I wasn't rather irritated at these people and that I'm not gonna pretend that I don't disapprove of kind of some of the stuff they're doing. Like I said, I find people behaving that way, like just posting like desperate for like again, it's not even VTubers, it's just like posting for attention like that on social media is really unhealthy. Um, and you don't do yourself any favors because let's say that uh because basically nobody's gonna come up and tell you you're like ugly or average looking, right? Because that would be
Yeah.
well, maybe on Twitter they might, but like you're just gonna get nothing but nice comments, and it's gonna inflate your ego, and I don't think that that's a good thing. I don't think that I think you're doing yourself a disservice. I would also point out something that I wasn't aware of, I hadn't even considered, but a good VTuber friend of mine kind of brought it up to my attention that she had been contacted by a lot of people who were VTubers and stuff like that, and they were really uncomfortable because people were posting all these selfies and they felt really pressured like that they had to post selfies or something and it was like making them really uncomfortable. I don't personally understand why they thought that way, but like that's apparently that's a thing. So there's general behavior that I don't really approve of. Um, the Whim's stamp of disapproval. It doesn't mean much, but it's so I was thoroughly irritated. So while I certainly am not going to pretend that I wasn't thinking that, like that I just that was some kind of like schizo post where I didn't know what I was saying, I will say that it was very not like me to actually post that rant. I don't really do that. So again, I was not in the best state at that time. I really should have just not posted it. But yeah, and I did myself a real disservice because any chance I had of making my point was kind of buried by, oh, well, this guy just sounds like a sexist incel or something like that, right? So I think that the apology that I put out, which was like one third, yeah, I'm sorry, I kind of act like a bit of a spurg there, and it was kind of an ass. Probably shouldn't have done that. And then it's like one third, like let me calmly and articulately restate my points here, and then kind of a little conclusion about like, hey, you know, if you got time to like 3K witch hunt me, you can help out these people who are actually being like harassed. So I feel like would it have been better for me to just from the get go, just post, something more in line with what we've been discussing about, here, or would I type in my apology? Absolutely, but nobody would have paid attention. And to be fair, I'm not don't interpret that as like I wanted attention. I posted that and expected to get like 12 replies, so I was kind of surprised that it got the attention that it did. Um, so I think ultimately it ended up being a net positive for everybody.
It brought a
Because I
lot of
wasn't
people
really bothered.
together.
Yeah, it
That's
brought a lot of people together.
that's
People
very
had
fair.
fun, they had fun. It was an interesting experience for me as somebody who, generally speaking, I think that most people would consider me fairly. Oh, this sounds so cringe. I don't want to say like I'm a nice guy, TM, but like people, I'm relatively mild mannered and not really an ass. And
I
people
mean, we've been
generally,
having a good
like me.
conversation for 2 hours, so
Yeah, yeah.
we're not
They
yelling. We haven't
could we have
blown.
done that if I was actually like some kind of cartoon villain? Probably not. But it was interesting, because because of that, I've never really been the villain. So it is very interesting to be Twitter villain for the weekend. Uh, and it a lot of people came to me in the DMs, saying like, hey, well, supporting me, but a lot of people came to me and they were having really, much like yourself, having really good discussions about this concept. So the fact that it brought this discussion to greater awareness, I think is that's a positive. I mean, like, that's a silver lining.
Did you think that over the course of, gosh, already a few weeks now, that it's been that your definition has kind of changed, or is it still remain the same as it was before when you posted the original tweet?
So the definition, like the sort of the 4/5 rules that we've gone over, that has been my definition more or less since I came up with it. Like, hasn't really changed. The only thing that really changed is I relaxed it from 2D and high quality 3D to include PNG 2D and all 3D. That's really the only change. Because again, that's a change that doesn't invalidate the actual core concept. So no, it it doesn't seem like it because I didn't articulate it well, but this has always been my position.
Hmm. And yikes, man! I mean, it was crazy. The backlash was
Yeah.
crazy. Did you ever think that? I mean, well, it's been brewing in your mind since January. So if I say, "Hey, was there ever a moment where you thought that maybe I shouldn't post it?" Right? Well, you had been thinking about it for so long. I'm sure you had till January till then to think about not posting it. But do you regret
Yeah,
posting
yeah.
it, or do you? I mean, because I mean, this tweet is still up, so you must
Well,
see
yeah,
some
so I
benefit
I
to
don't,
it being up.
I don't approve of people because a lot of times people will do stuff. Usually, it's far worse than what I did. They'll like be harassing people, or they'll do,
Oh,
so they'll like,
people have been exposed for much worse things in the
oh
VTuber
yeah, much
community
worse,
and
like actual
release.
pedophilia and stuff. And what they'll do is they'll post like a non apology. Yeah, they'll post a
Right,
non apology, and then
right.
they'll delete everything and they'll cover it up and hope everybody forgets. I I I'm not somebody. I would say that I kind of regret posting it simply, but only because I was an ass, and that's kind of not who I am. It's not what I'm like, and so it was very out of character, and it feels very very odd to kind of look back at that. To be fair, like you were saying, or asking, had I ever thought about posting and then not posting, deciding not to? Sort of. I'd been meaning, I'd been thinking about saying something since like probably like March or April, and I just kept saying, "All right, just ignore it for just whatever." And it just sort of kept happening. I kept seeing it, and it just kept being that splinter. And eventually I was like, "All right, whatever. I'll say something." And so literally that entire rant, I probably typed that up in like 5 minutes, and then spent like a minute or two spell checking it and posted it. Like, there wasn't really much time to think, man, I probably shouldn't post this. So it's very stream of conscious, yeah.
Oh man. Well, I mean, I read the apology, and it seems I didn't sense like any bad malice. I mean, you're even telling people to delete it because people could track down, location data
Right, yeah, that was the thing that happened, yeah,
from.
yeah. I
Yeah.
got linked the threads on I won't say which board because I don't wanna give them attention.
Did people were people blaming
No,
you
I'm just
for
kidding.
that?
No, no, I don't think anybody was blaming me for it because that would've been
Okay.
really dumb.
Yeah.
But I feel like I wanted to mention it, partially because again, I don't really like seeing people post selfies, but it's not because I don't like them. or I don't like their selfie. It's more because like I don't feel like it, it's sort of out of a mild bit of concern. I don't really like to see people setting themselves up for failure or to kind of get hurt over stuff, and posting your personal information online to strangers is kind of an easy way for that to happen. So I felt like it was worth mentioning, because I was linked to threads and I checked them out and I was like, oh, like this person's post says, hey, look at all these blah blah blah, right? Like 500 what's have posted their selfies, and I've saved all of them. And like, ha ha ha, looks like a lot of them have just reposted stuff that they posted on different accounts. So by reverse image searching, they were able to find their actual IRL accounts because they, you know. So I felt like it was a little too late because I'm sure they were all already downloaded. But I figured it was worth mentioning and kind of just. I also kind of wanted to use that to remind people, like, hey, maybe you shouldn't post selfies on, not because of the VTuber stuff, but just because it's the internet,
This is your the way. Okay, okay. This is how you get people
you,
to
you
get
could
your
you could
definition.
make it in retrospect. That actually ends up being that ends up
It
potentially
works to your
working
point.
to get what I want, but that was
It's
unintentional.
it's actually it's actually it actually your apology, and what you said, the IRL doxing works to your definition, saying that's exactly why Hololive doesn't do it as well,
Uh
because
huh.
it is a privacy issue. When you
Yeah,
post
but again, I
IRL.
doubt anybody was gonna do more than like just laugh at the pictures or something.
Okay. Yeah.
Generally, people
It's
don't actually care that much. I've been doxxed in the past, like long ago, like in the
yeah.
past, and people don't. I got sent some pizzas, like that's kind of the extent of it. It's not a huge deal.
Right.
It was good
Okay.
pizza, by the way. I don't like pepperoni, but they gave me pepperoni.
Oh.
That was my one complaint, that they doxed me and they sent me pepperoni instead of like supreme or just cheese.
Oh, geez. And you
But
haven't get it. You
anyways,
haven't gotten doxxed with what happened here.
oh god, no, no, because again, I am a firm believer in maintaining that separation. I made sure I scoured the internet and made sure absolutely nothing with this account was linked to my IRL self at all.
Oh, careful!
Like
Don't say
literally,
that. That's
like
gonna sound like a
you could
challenge
know
to someone.
you can go ahead and dig. I spent like weeks. There was actually I had some programming related stuff on like a mailing list or something that I had happened to use for, and I had to I like track them down, had them remove it from the mailing list, and then I had Google purge it from the art, like from the cache results, so that, and then confirm that you can't find it anymore. Yeah, no, I put that's why I kind of have a bit more of a hardline stance of like it's not that hard to maintain like a separate account. It takes a little bit of legwork, but only if you've laid the groundwork for that.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, hopefully nothing does happen, man. And whoever hears
No,
this,
nobody actually cares about me enough to do that. That
uh,
sounds kind of sad. That makes me sound
don't.
like I'm disappointed.
I would not underestimate people with a lot of time and people who
Yeah, yo,
use
that
Twitter.
take his life guy might come after me. That ratio was just not enough. He's
Yikes!
got to find me.
Yeah.
Good news is that I have decided to, as an alien, I've landed on this planet. I decided to sail in America, and America has wonderful stand your ground and my home is my castle laws. So I would encourage anybody considering hunting me down to reconsider.
Okay.
I don't
That's
want the
a
paperwork. It's not.
good. Yeah, good note. Well, I guess just to kind of like wrap this up, at least the definition now, which is what everyone was kind of wanting to put, is it? And we'll just I'll ask the question one more time, just now that as we're wrapping it up.
Yep.
The it's not so much what over abroad should be, everyone should follow this definition, but it's at least what you're following based on how you quality check like VTubers you're interested in.
Right. The concept is derived from them, and it still fits the majority of ENV tubers as well. So it's not so much that we're following, that I'm saying people have to follow what JP has done. I'm saying that it's in everybody's best interest, in my opinion, if we follow the concept that has arisen from that.
Okay, and do you think that there's a way for a VTuber to disassociate from that and take a different route and succeed, or does it need to be this way in order to see some kind of VTuber success?
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't. I would say that, setting aside success, I would say that Yes, I think that it should be you should do it this way just because that's how VTubing is, and that's kind of what makes it interesting. I would say, for success, you can I mean, not to make it sound like I'm ripping on it. Are you familiar with the channel, Daily Dose of Internet on YouTube?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So let's be honest. I mean, I like the videos, right? I've been watching him since it's crazy how big he got. But what he essentially does is he just goes to like R mildly interesting or R like something like subreddits and stuff, scrapes a couple interesting videos, and then posts a compilation every like week or two, and like a 3 minute thing. You, you and is incredibly successful. You if you make content that people want, you can be successful. All I'm saying is that if you're going to label yourself as VTuber content, you know, so that when people search for VTuber content, they find your content, maybe try and make your content actually be VTuber content, you know. Otherwise, I won't say it's clickbait, but it's sort of misuse of tags. It's like posting like if you got like a Resident Evil 8 hashtag when that was good, there was an example was going around and somebody was using it to plug their OnlyFans. Had nothing to do with Resident Evil 8. Like, see what I mean? Like,
right. There are some people
there's a
that use
time and a
it.
place.
Right. So then if I do IRL stuff and VTuber stuff, but I only do a hashtag VTuber on the VTuber stuff and not the IRL stuff.
Well, if the account says VTuber, if it's your VTuber account,
Like in
then
the
that's sort of
profile.
that's a default hashtag. Treat it like a default hashtag. So I would say, yeah, if you want to do IRL stuff, just don't do it on the VTuber account.
I
It's
see it.
yeah.
I see it. And I'm not saying I agree or well, I disagree on some points, but I think
Yeah,
you
yeah,
make
totally fair, totally fair.
you make very interesting points though on across the board. So I know for a fact some people are gonna grill me because I didn't fight you on
Didn't
some of
crucify me.
your
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah, yeah. It's
crucify you,
fine.
but it was this really was just
There's
to
still time. You can do it if you want. You can call
no,
me
no,
like a
no,
piece of
no, no.
shit. Just do it right now.
I'm not.
Get it
Yeah,
over
now
with.
that we're done, now that we're wrapping up, all right, let's pull out the boxing glove. No,
Are,
no,
you, are
no,
we off the air? All right. Pull out
no,
the gun. Let's go.
no. This really was just to kind of understand because as I've been in known about VTubers for 2 years, been a VTuber for 1 year, and I don't see myself in a position to at least say this is right or this is wrong, or nor do I care to have that like opinion. I'm just
hmm
I'm along for the ride, and I'm just excited to see the just the kind of different changes. But really, this whole thing was just to kind of understand understand your point of view, and if someone wants to argue for it, well, that's what the comments are for. But
Exactly.
that's not
Exactly.
what I wanted to use this discussion
Keep it
for.
civil in the comments, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, you could go crazy. I'll
Yeah,
let the
or don't.
auto.
Just come and yell at me again
I'll
if it
let.
makes you
Well,
feel better.
no,
I'm
no.
actually fine with it.
I'll let the auto YouTube comments filter it out. Let it filter that out.
Oh my
But yeah,
god.
no, I really appreciate you spending time to come and talk, man. I didn't think you were actually going to respond, so I'm really excited that we had the chance to talk. I appreciate you coming over,
Yeah, yeah.
man.
No, I had a blast. It was a great time.
And that'll be it for today's episode. If you guys enjoyed that, be sure to find our guest links in the description below. And I'll see you guys next week. See ya.